Thanks for tuning in. If you're watching on YouTube, be sure to hit the subscribe button to stay up to date on all of our latest video content. If you're watching on LocalGov TV, be sure to visit their website to see all of the content made for you by your local governments. Alamance County is pleased to present the Alamance County Commissioners Meeting.
We're going to call the meeting to order, and if you'll bow your head for the invocation. Dear Lord, help us to make the best decisions for all of our county residents. Provide protection for all the men and women of our armed forces who continue to fight and die for our freedom every day. Protect all of our first responders. Help us to remember you are all-knowing. You know our thoughts and our hearts. In your mighty name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
And if, as you're able, if you'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I need an approval of the agenda.
A motion to approve the agenda with an amendment to move the item 4A, the 2026 Amyotrophic Lateral Sclerosis Awareness Month from April to May, since we've learned that it's actually nationally recognized in May.
I'll second that.
And all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the next is we have a proclamation for the litter sweep. I don't think we have a member here from the New Leaf Association, except I'm a board member, but this is about this month being, if you see trash, please pick it up. And please get out. But the proclamation reads, whereas the North Carolina Department of Transportation organizes a biannual statewide riverside roadside litter removal initiative, and whereas dedicated volunteers along with local maintenance crews devote their time and effort during this initiative to remove litter from our roadways, whereas Alamance County residents, municipalities, and organizations are invited to participate in Litter Sweep by New Leaf Society, a nonprofit organization that works to improve the county's curb appeal, and whereas local governments have an essential role in promoting clean communities through public works and environmental stewardship, whereas communities that are free from litter contribute to a sense of pride in the area you live in, belonging, and economic development. And whereas spring represents a season of renewal, a time to celebrate the beauty of nature and the importance of maintaining a clean and sustainable environment. Now therefore be it resolved that we, the Alamance County Board of Commissioners, do hereby proclaim April 11th through the 25th of 2026 as Litter Sweep in Alamance County, and encourage all citizens to help protect and enhance the beauty of Alamance County by reducing litter. This is the 6th day of April, 2026. We need to make a motion.
Motion approved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And I would like to say too that I noticed the sheriff sometimes uses inmates who volunteer to get out for a while, and they've been out picking up trash, and we appreciate that. Okay, so now we're going to move to the public comments. You have 3 minutes to come up here and state. Please don't go over the 3 minutes. If you have 2 or 3 of you that want to state the same thing, you could get one speaker to speak for you. So we'll start calling the people that we have down here. We have we have Carol Davis first, and then if the second person will be ready, David Wren. If you'll please come up to speak. Is Carol Davis here? I know some people are in the overflow. Okay. Mr. Wren, if you'll go ahead and go while we're waiting to see if Carol Davis comes up.
What's his first name?
David.
My name is David Wren, born and raised right here in Alamance County. Love the county. Absolutely. If I had anywhere else to choose to live, this is where I'd be. Hear about the Philippi landfill. Know Mr. Philippi and his family since I was a kid. Best friends since elementary school. Probably the first time y'all seen this room this packed. About 98% of this room are Philippi supporters. Neighbors, people who took time off from their jobs to come show support. This is a good thing with the growth of Alamance County. You got the new Food Line site coming in out there off 61. That's going to be more jobs, more housing. You got Mebane booming, more jobs, more housing. Burlington's the same way. I wish people would put more focus on our school systems being behind with all this growth and development other than trying to fight the landfill. I mean, this is something that serves every municipality around here locally, and it's a benefit, really. And he's actually doing more service than a lot of people realize for the county. Thank you.
Carol Davis, Pastor Jay Odell.
Morning, my name is Jay Odell, pastor of Collinsville Road Baptist Church. I live on Cardin Road in Graham. I've had the privilege and responsibility of pastoring Collinsville Road Baptist Church for 4 years. Collinsville Road is located on the corner of Clap Mill and Collinsville Road, about a half a mile from the current operating location of Philippi Landfill, and 7/10 of a mile to the proposed location. Over the past 4 years, I've had several interactions with Mr. Philippi. Mr. Philippi is not a member of our church. I'm not on his payroll. He's not giving me any compensation for being here this morning. However, he has assisted us in ministry in many different ways. He's provided snow removal for our parking lot for many years. He's offered advice for grading for water abatement. He's done this without cost to us, in which we're very grateful. In 2024, while we were doing disaster relief, Mr. Philippi stopped by asking what he could do. I don't know what all he done. I'm not familiar with all the ins and outs of our finances, but I know he provided funds for disaster relief for the Helene victims. And I want to, part of that is dealing with the attack of his character. He's not a man that's greedy. He's not a self-centered individual. He's not a land grabber that is concerned about himself. He's a caring man that deserves nothing more to provide for his family, and legally by doing those things. Secondly is the accusations about the LCID materials, the burning of those materials. Whether worship services, prayer meetings, youth activities, addiction recovery meetings, general landscaping, mowing, or upkeep of campus around the campus buildings, someone from the congregation is often outside. We've not had the same experience as some of our neighbors have claimed. We have not had ash or other debris on our buildings, equipment, or vehicles. About a little over a year and a half ago, we actually put our vehicles inside, not because of this, but because of vandalism from other circumstances, individuals in the community. We do on occasion have the smell of smoke, but it's to be expected. It's the country. We expect our neighbors to be burning leaves and other debris. We expect fields to be fertilized with chicken litter, turkey litter, hog farms, and other issues that, you know what, I may not like very much. I also expect to hear loud noises, music that I may not agree with, and even maybe loud conversations between neighbors, between a husband and wife. I don't know if y'all ever get that or not. We do. Finally, on a personal note, and I'll try to do this very quickly. In the early 2000s, my wife and I lived on Thompson Mill Road. Our neighbor decided to killer cut 138 acres, and one of our neighbors was very irate, writing in the local newspaper. I wrote the response to that letter. And I said, if the man that pays taxes on his property wants to put a hog farm on the property, as long as he obeys state and local laws, then he should be allowed to be able to do that. To the best of our knowledge, Mr. Philippi has and continues to follow the current laws that govern LCID landfills. So I ask you to approve this permit and allow him to support his family and this community to the best of his ability. Madam Chairman, Commissioners, thank you.
Here's Davis.
Hey, good morning. I am Carol Davis, and I own property adjacent to the proposed Philippi landfill. And I'm here to urge you to delay approval of this permit because it's both incomplete and inaccurate. While preparing for the March Planning Board meeting, I discovered that in 2025, Mr. Philippi submitted a 60-plus page application to the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality for a wood material treatment and processing facility at 4115 Clap Mill Road, the exact same location that's currently under consideration for the landfill. According to that application, the facility will receive and process land clearing debris, clean wood waste, tree trimmings, and yard waste. These materials will be ground, mulched, composted, or burned using an air curtain incinerator, all within the stated area of operations of the proposed landfill in front of you. However, the landfill application before you today makes no mention of any of these activities. Instead, it simply states that the site will be used for landfilling of land clearing and inert debris. This omission raises serious concerns. The community has a right to understand the full scope of what's going on in their backyard. For example, does the current landfill application accurately reflect the total truck traffic on Clap Mill Road that will result from both the landfill and the wood processing and treatment facility? 78 trucks per day are expected, 78 one-way trucks are what's expected for the landfill. We have seen and have photographs of 40 trucks, 40 one-way truck traffics, 40 one-way trips going on now. That's a 50% increase over the 78%. And since the landfill is not open, we have to assume this is incremental traffic. The separate application also clearly states that the air curtain incinerator will be used. Yet Mr. Philippi told the Alamance County Planning Department he would not use the incinerator when concerns were raised about the ash affecting neighboring properties. Which statement is true? The treatment and processing facility application references the landfill sediment and erosion control plan, indicating the state knew about both projects. So why were local officials and residents not informed? I only became aware of the second application by accident, and I shared it with Mr. Hoagland myself. This raises a critical question. What else have we not been told? For these reasons, I urge you to reject this application as incomplete and inaccurate. The neighbors of the proposed site deserved honest and transparent representation of what is planned, and so far that has not occurred. Thank you.
Thank you. And I hope I got this right. Is this Bobby Steele? Okay.
That's my correct name. My name is Bobby Steele, resident for 36 years on Clap Mill Road. And all these trucks I've been hearing about, I've got a sun porch built on my house, and it's got 8 double sliding glass windows. And that's where I stay 90% of the time because my wife's on dialysis and I'm full caretaker of her. I have to be there all the time. She's wheelbound here, and she's not concerned about this landfill at all. I'm not. And all these ashes they talking about, I've not seen one, and I'm not a quarter mile away from his landfill. So I don't know what they talking about. I'm not on the payroll. I've been knowing this young man since he's that high. He's a good Christian boy. He's raised his family like he's supposed to. He's not out there begging for money. He's not there holding signs. He's not out there in the food line chain. He's making a living. Leave him alone. Let him make his living. I started working when I was 11 years old in the fields. I know what it's all about. You got to work for a living. I ain't nobody give me nothing. And all he's doing is trying to make a living. That's all he's trying to do. And all these trucks he was talking about. I sat there. I counted 3 days, an average of 10 to 12 hours. You know how many trucks I've seen come by? 2. One of them was a Kirkpatrick truck, okay? A big one. And they've been dumping on him for a long time. And one of the ladies that speaks in here, against that, her son's the one's dumping. I mean, ain't that ironic? I don't understand all this. I really don't. But I wish they'd just leave him alone, let him make a living for his family. He's a good man. In fact, there's probably been 8 generations of Philippi's on that road, Clap Mill Road. His great-great-granddaddy lived there. His pawpaw, he's there. His daddy, him. His daddy's got, it's not his daddy, but his pawpaw's got 3 sisters and a brother lives on that road right now. Well, one of them's dead, 2 of them dead. One of the sisters and one of the brothers dead. But they've been on there ever since I can remember. Like I said, I've been there 36 years. They ain't bothered me at all. Not a bit. I don't know where the answers come from, but that development they built down there, not a person said anything about that housing development being put there. There's more traffic. I sat there and counted. I know. There's more traffic comes out of that development down there, them housing development, than any truck ever thought about being on Clout Mill Road. And you never heard nobody say nothing about that. He's had a landfill on Council Road for 10 years. Nobody said a word. Go against that. Not a one. And I don't understand now, all of a sudden, they want to go against this one down below me. I got no problem with it. It don't bother me at all. And I just wish y'all would just consider that and just go ahead and let the boy have his landfill. He's worked for it. He's bought all that land in there. He pays good taxes. His good revenue comes out of his pocket. And I think you just leave him alone. And that's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Paul Kuntz.
Attorney for the applicant, I'd like to go last, if that's okay, just so I can respond to all the other public comments that I've had.
Okay. Carol Davis has already spoke. Matt Kirkpatrick. He may be downstairs. Dean Coble. And Mr. Kirkpatrick, if you are downstairs, if you can be working your way upstairs.
Dean Coble, born and raised, Collinsville Road, Clout Mill Road, pretty much the intersection. 59 years, be 60 soon. I'm here in support of Kenneth. I got property borders Kenneth. If I ever sold, it'd be the first one I called. I've heard environmental and traffic. I'm kind of like Bobby on traffic. I mean, housing developments. Stick 100 houses back there. 2-3 cars per house, garbage trucks, UPS, FedEx, Amazon, lawnmowers. I don't know how much traffic y'all think that's gonna add, but that's gonna add. Environmental, I've heard it all historical. My house built on historical land. I don't guess you set foot nowhere you ain't stepping on historical. So anyway, I'm with Bobby on this. Leave the man alone. Let him make a living. Let's do it. Let's get it over with. Ain't no sense in something dragging out like it's drug out. I mean, darn. I wouldn't expect to come down to the county and get a permit and drag out this long and have to spend that much money. I mean, he dots his I's and crosses his T's. Let's do it. Let's go roll with it. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm probably not going to say this right. Pam Good?
Gowdy.
Gowdy. Sorry, I knew I wouldn't pronounce that right. Okay, and Rob Gowdy? They must be downstairs also. Linda Kirkpatrick or Matt?
Thank you, Matt.
That's Matt.
Good morning, Alamance County Commissioners. My message today, and I've presented several times, maybe to everyone we've come to, is we need time to deliberate the application of your UDO. Is Mr. Hoagland here? Is Matthew Hoagland, your county? Okay, there he is. We need time to interpret and correctly apply to your UDO. We started this process 3 months ago at the first meeting. The room was full of questions. What's going on in this room? At this site. How is it allowed? How are they allowed to conduct these activities? After months of those, did everyone get my 320 memo? The 320 memo we submitted, in which we did basically a dissertation, the best of our ability and our attorneys, and we had another attorney weigh in on the application of the current site activities and the planned, the application you're hearing today. So we applied your UDO in every possible way to the direct definitions of both of those activities. We found the current operation is operating without permits, one, and two, and again, we don't have time to go through all these arguments in 3 minutes. So let me back up to, my purpose today is to ask you, we need time to deliberate the application of your UDO to this site and its activities. One, its activities, and then two, the application for the LCID landfill. You organize this HIDO ordinance with the intent of serving your citizens and your county and to protect them from heavy industrial uses. We're so far apart on our application of what we believe, or how we believe this ordinance is applied. And after 3 months of questioning, submitting a memo, a dissertation, which was legally reviewed, I think in 7 days or 10 days, we got a response back on the 31st. And then here we are 6 days later, potentially take action on it. And I can tell you your memo and the response from your county, your legal and your planning director, they're so far apart. I mean, I'm in the business of investing, and believe me, there's zero chance that either party is completely correct. But we believe we are. So we need a chance to deliberate this. We need a chance. My point is, these arguments are so far apart, that we need a chance to deliberate this in front of a third party. I don't know if it's an arbitrator or someone, but we need to hit pause. This is the future of this county you're talking about. This site is tremendous in size. The impact will be enormous, and it will be felt for generations. This man, sure, everybody has a right to run their business, but the reason you have to protect heavy industrial is because it's so damaging. I mean, they're telling us that incineration is not even being regulated. How can incineration not be regulated? I mean, that was one of the conclusions they gave us. So we have to be able to deliberate this. I hope someone will make that motion and we can get a second today so we have time to deliberate this correctly. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. How did I pronounce that?
Gowdy.
Gowdy, are they here? Pam and Rob Gowdy?
I think that's them.
Here's Gowdy?
Yes.
Okay.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Pamela Gowdy. I live at 3907 Clap Mill Road, Burlington. Welcome to the second battle of Clap Mill. Because of the Easter holiday and medical emergencies, many disappointed residents are not here to voice their opinion. Some could be on the 20th. For the past few days, the work they're doing at 4115 Clap Mill Road, which apparently is okay to do, there was this terrible, loud, grinding noise of machinery, very disturbing and stressful. Inert debris sounds harmless, but it's not. It brings industrial scale issues into the residential area. You all know how this has already deteriorated our quality of life from the numerous emails to the government officials and professionals that I have shared the many issues with you. I hope you have all read all of them with an open mind to the welfare of everyone in the community. I know a lot of his family members and friends live nearby and don't want to jeopardize his business plans, but we have many signatures of people on the petition for several different reasons think it's not a good idea for another landfill in such a close proximity to others. It threatens the long-term safety of our community for more than 200 homes. Health and environment risks are big concerns. We all have well water and are worried about contaminations. We all need fresh water and clean vegetation. We have already been introduced to the toxic dust and ash and smoke from the burning diesel fumes from all the heavy machinery and trucks. My sister and many other people in the community have respiratory issues. Burlington, Gibsonville garbage trucks and large industrial dump trucks have been photographed going in and coming out from the facility. Traffic and property value are around another big issue. There are many new teenager drivers and families with children within this community, not all known of the proposed landfill. Landfills reduce home values 12%. That's a great loss of property tax revenue and loss of equity for residents. Commissioners, your duty is to protect the health, safety, and welfare of all the residents. This will not be an easy thing to fix once all this gets pushed even further production, who's going to be responsible to fix it if something goes horribly wrong? We all deserve better, not a community full of landfills. The noise and traffic are nauseous. I ask that you look past the developer and his engineer's promises and listen to the neighbors that will be directly impacted. Vote no on this permit to construct. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Bob Gowdy. I live on Clap Mill Road, actually right across the street from Bobby Steele. When I first heard about the landfill in October, I was not against the idea because I actually like the idea of an LCID landfill, what they do. So I went to the meeting in October and heard a lot of people complaining about smoke and ash, which kind of took me by surprise because I'd experienced that, but I had assumed it was because of forest fires raging free around the country. Turned out that it wasn't. Find out as the meeting goes on that they're using their curtain burner. And, sorry, I lost my place. And that's when I changed my mind about it because I know some people say they haven't seen it, but we're fairly far away from it. We've experienced the smoke and the ash, probably not on the same level that people that live closer. But I've also learned more about these air curtain burners in this time. And I went by going and visiting the websites of the people that manufacture them and watching videos and realized that these burners are not supposed to emit ash into the atmosphere. And the smoke that comes out of them is supposed to be very minimal. And the ones that I have viewed, it's very little smoke compared to what we experience during certain parts of the year. And it is a very heavy smoke. But it also learned that probably what's wrong when you see that is that the burner is out of balance and something that can be corrected. So the way I feel about this is that just get rid of the smoke and the ash, make a lot of people happy. And at the very, give us a concession, either that or just don't let them use it at either site. As far as the rest of the landfill goes, I do not have a problem with that at all. Thank you.
Thank you. Linda Kirkpatrick. Ms. Kirkpatrick.
Downstairs.
I called her earlier.
There she comes.
Okay.
That's my friend.
I'm Linda Kirkpatrick, and I thank you all for serving us and for listening to the grievances and to what is the situation is, what we have seen, and I have some pictures of some things that are going on that we feel is very disastrous. And so if you don't mind, I will read because I've written it down. I'm going to speak from the heart. God never intended for people to pollute the land, especially when it adversely affects neighbors, homes, families, widows, and children. Landfills are necessary, we know, because we have polluted. But to be surrounded by 3 within 1.5 miles from the same family, which is okay, except it's not okay because 3 is a little much within 1.5 miles. It's just not fair. We feel that our rights to live have been violated, are being violated. There are 200 neighbors that this is affecting, not just a few. That's a lot to have to fight a normal life, a life that is not healthy, not going to be healthy. Air has been polluted already. The water, where fear is very close because it's too close to the creek, Nobody wants to talk about these things, but these things are real. And definitely the noise, the constant noise. So we have, what other aspect of life do you have besides those? What is left? Plus taking the value of the properties. That's a thought. This landfill is just not suitable for this area. When a landfill affects so many lives and causes and affects so many lives in every way, it should be considered not suitable to operate. And you being voted to serve the people of Alamance County, we pray that you deny this landfill, because there are all the reasons of life to deny it. There's every reason for it. Does this landfill, I'd like to remind the pastor that he doesn't live there. He works there, but he's not living there.
Your time's up.
And no one should have to live around 3 landfills again. I've said that within a mile. We have proof that the landfill is not being used as it should be. And if they're not using it now and following the laws, what makes anyone think that they will do it when it's not, when they have a permit? What's going to keep them doing it? I'm sorry, I ran over, but this is a very dangerous, and it should be not. It should just not, this one should not be. They already have 2. Here's the pictures.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Coons, you're not doing the presentation, are you? Are you doing the presentation?
No, I think the only presentation's being made by staff.
Okay, all right. Sorry, go ahead.
I'll be glad to make a
I just wanted to double check that.
Trying to limit a lawyer to 3 minutes is against the Constitution, I'm just gonna tell you. All right, so let's get us back to, what we applied for. What we applied for is an LCID permit. And the UDO sets out that that's a class 1. And I haven't heard anybody say that we have not qualified for that permit. The application, the review, the public hearing started in November. This has been through planning staff back and forth, county attorney back and forth, numerous public comment sections. And there is no doubt that we have checked every box on that permit application. And I'll address some of the concerns that have been raised, but when it comes down to it, what your UDO says is that if we have met the permit requirements, we get the permit. Just like any other permit that is applied for, just like any other LCID permit that has been applied for in the past. They have gone through a similar process without really the public opposition to it, of going through and meeting with staff and going through the engineering and checking all of those boxes, TIA studies, the whole 9 yards. So they have done what they're supposed to do, the applicant has, in meeting the requirements of the permit. We know that in part because county staff has gone through this with them, has submitted it up to the planning board, and the planning board, after multiple hearings and multiple rounds of comments, voted 6-1 in favor. And they work on this at a level of detail that, quite honestly, many times at the county commissioners, it's impossible. But the planning board does their job on that part. Let me address just quickly 2 items. Traffic is always mentioned. Just to note, we did the TIA study. North Carolina DOT has approved our use for that with a driveway permit, and they are making improvements to that road, probably in part of all the public comments. That's one of the good things that this public process brings out. What Matt Kirkpatrick raises is that the county is misapplying the UDO. And what I take from his comments are, he is saying that every LCID permit that's ever been issued in the county, with every planning board and every county attorney and every county commissioners, has been issued improperly. That what is going to take place on that property is we're going to
apply by the permit. We're going to comply with the permit all the way through. To create a landfill, you got to dig a hole. That's what they object to, is that there will be dirt removed from the site, but you've got to dig a hole to create the landfill. Now, why does Alamance County consider this a class 1, which is the lowest level? Because the state of North Carolina regulates our use in multiple departments. And so we still have to go through an entire state process in terms of both getting it set up and operating it. And believe me, everybody that lives in that area knows the telephone number of every agency because they have been calling them nonstop, really filing false complaints about what is going on that site. And so, and Kenneth has worked through all those, has worked with the state, and he is used to doing that, and he'll comply. I see my time is coming to an end. We would just ask you to approve the permit. I really don't think there's any other choice if you follow the law, and we are here for any other comments or questions that you may have of the applicant. Thanks.
Thank you. So that ends everyone who has signed up to make public comments.
Are those Miss Kirkpatrick?
They're Ms. Kirkpatrick's
Okay, I'm sorry.
pictures.
I'll give them to her.
All right. Now we have the commissioner's chance to respond to the comments. So, Mr. Priola, we'll start with you.
I think we need more time to deliberate on this matter. The application scope, whether it's being filled or not, is not apparent to me. What I find quite compelling with the folks that are objecting to the landfill is the traffic situation in particular. Those trucks look pretty darn dangerous on that back road. It's something that I'm rather concerned with, and I think, like a number of the matters that come before this body, we need to think about these things in a more deliberative fashion. Whether we approve ultimately approve the landfill application or not, I want to think about it. I'm not concerned. I'm quite concerned that we haven't considered all the matters, particularly those of safety. One of the speakers mentioned he's only observed 2 trucks going up and down that road in recent times, whereas another speaker observed that this would likely result in 78 trucks. That's a big whopping difference, and it concerns me. So I think that the applicant is entitled to due process. That doesn't mean that we rush things through like we've done with too many other contracts in my time on the board here. Thank you.
Vice Chair.
Well, I must say, well said, Ed. I concur. I think it's a good idea for us to digest this. I think you covered all the points that I had concerns about, but I, at the same time, recognize that if you connect all the dots, checkpoint to checkpoint, we pretty much don't have an opportunity to do much but approve this, but that's looking at what it might be. We do need to digest it and make sure that the points agree like we think they ought to agree. So I think we need that time to digest it. I don't know that, aren't we getting a presentation here shortly from Matt?
We are.
Yeah.
Okay.
But let everybody speak. You want to make a comment?
Yeah, I'd like to just say that that I appreciate all the people that have come in to talk about this issue. And that to me means that it's not yet a resolved issue, that people still have questions in their mind. That maybe we need just a little more time. I've been called by 2 residents also already to ask that there be a little more time to go through the UDO, assess miscommunications, and consider issues such as noise and air pollution. I think we need to have this service to the community. We need places that that stumps and tree trimmings and all of that can be taken In order for growth to occur, you've got to have that service available. But you need to also have that put in a place that is appropriate for that. And we just, as a community, need the time to work through that and really consider all the options before we vote on that. So I'm going to be inclined to go along with a delay if we can do that.
Commissioner Thompson.
Well, this is one of those situations when you don't have zoning, this is what you get. And everybody doesn't like zoning as long as it doesn't affect them. I went through that with the school system. I understand how that is, but you've got to have a big picture of things to make sure you don't have certain things that you know are not healthy for your environment or healthy for your families to be around. I spoke with the school system and I wanted to know if school buses were on Clap Mill Road. And there are 3 elementary kids and 1 high school, so a school bus is on that road. I do have concerns about how narrow that road is if you meet a big truck and a school bus at the same time, because I just saw on the news over the weekend where a school bus was traveling and crossed the center line and hit a big dump truck head on, and 2 children were killed and many others were injured. And that doesn't mean that's here. That just means this person went across the line. That's what the problem was. I hear both sides of this, and it's just a very tough situation. But there are a lot of homes out in this area. I've heard 200 over and over. So that's a lot of traffic in itself. It's just not all one or the other. And I've been out that way and I've saw where there's land for sale. So and some people may have more land that they're wanting to develop into the same thing. That's more traffic as well. You see out in the rural areas where farms are sold off, you get houses, one right after another. That's more traffic. And I appreciate so much the gentleman talking about focusing on your schools, because the more you build, the more children you have, the more your schools will get over capacity. So everything in Alamance County, like every other county, is connected, no matter how you want to look at it. So I will, they've gotten every permit. And I've told people that have called me about this. This has gotten really personal because I understand it. It's emotions, it's involvement, this is my neighborhood. I want it to stay like it is. This is where I want to raise my children. I don't want this, but at the same time, I personally would much rather have this kind of landfill than Austin Quarters across the road from me with that kind of situation. But a landfill in a county is a big draw because of what it provides for your county. So we just have to learn and work together, but we must be safe that we don't affect the very things that keep us alive, our water, our dirt, our soil, our neighbors. So I'm hearing y'all talk about, putting this off. We are not sending this back to the planning board because that's the way we have a tendency to do. I'll say you can put this off to the next commissioner meeting at the end of this month, and we should make a decision because that's what we were hired to do, is make decisions.
And in a lot of discussions, because we don't have zoning, we're pretty much told that this is no way to stop this. But I do have a lot of questions left. I do not want this to go back to planning and zoning. But I do think that we need to really digest everything that's been said to us, and that I'm in agreement that we put off a decision until our next meeting on April the 20th. Isn't it April 20th? Everyone through? Okay. All right, so now we're going to go to the consent agenda.
Motion to approve.
Need a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we have 3 presentations. So we will start out with Mr. Hoagland.
Good morning, Commissioners. Hope you all had a nice Easter holiday. My name is Matthew Hoagland. I'm the Alamance County Planning Director, and I'm going to essentially give you a run through today of the intent to construct application that's in your packets. The primary documents that we're going to be looking at are the compliance schedule version 1.2 and the civil site plan that the applicant submitted for this project. Before I get into the particulars of the ordinance and then the compliance, I just want to do a brief snapshot on more or less the review process that we're engaged in here. This is really a three-step administrative review process, and we're currently at the third step. So as folks have commented previously, staff reviews, receives all of the materials, and then certifies that we have a completed application. We then pass that along to the planning board, and it is their responsibility to host a public hearing. Two of our commissioners were present for the most recent public hearing, and then either vote to approve or deny the application. In this case, they have voted to approve. And then step 3 is obviously where we find ourselves today. So this is really a snapshot from the ordinance of the role today for the county commissioners and whether there's a decision to approve or deny. And simply stated from the ordinance, it says, in cases where the planning board recommends approval of an application, the Board of Commissioners shall review the recommendation for compliance with the requirements of the ordinance. If the commissioners determine that the application is compliant with the requirements of the ordinance, they shall issue the intent to construct permit. If the commissioners determine that the application is not compliant with the requirements of the ordinance, it shall deny the application, and then in a denial, there is an opportunity for an appeal. So that's just a snapshot of the process. And as I mentioned, I'm going to go through just kind of in really a checklist format of what you see in the application packet and then the compliance from the applicant. So section 6.5.1 deals with applicability. They acknowledge that a land clearing and inert debris landfill is in fact regulated by this ordinance. That is on page 1 of the compliance schedule. 6.5.2 specifically outlines inert debris landfills, and on page 1, again, they acknowledge compliance there. 6.5.3A deals with minimum lot sizes. Class 1 uses are required to have a lot size of at least 10 acres, and the current property size is approximately 99.03 acres. That's found on sheet 1A of your civil site plan. 6.5.3B deals with the building height limits, but there are no buildings proposed for this property. That's noted on page 1 of the compliance schedule. 6.5.3C deals with land use spacing. There's no land use spacing requirement for a class 1 facility, so that is not applicable. And similar to that, subsection D provides the opportunity for a land spacing waiver, but since there's no land spacing requirement, no waiver is being sought. 6.5.3E deals with an operation setback, and for a class 1 use, the requirement is 150 feet from the operations area. On the civil site plan in sheets 1, 2, 3, 4, and 7, you will see this operation setback drawn on each of those maps. Now, I do want to take a little bit of time to talk about the traffic impact analysis. We received a couple of comments earlier today, Mr. Priola. Obviously, you had some concerns there as well. So subsection F of the ordinance requires that the applicant do a traffic study to determine if the development will push the road above what the ordinance classifies as its practical carrying capacity. And carrying capacity is a terminology from NCDOT. So in their numerical analysis using NCDOT data, you will see that there are currently approximately 600 vehicle trips per day on Clap Mill Road. The anticipated truck trips per day as a result of the LCID landfill would be 77, for a total anticipated trips per day of 677. Meanwhile, the NCDOT full-scale carrying capacity is 14,300. So the remaining capacity would be in excess of 13,000 vehicle trips per day. As a result, the engineers state, quote, "It is our professional opinion that the proposed landfill will not push the road by which the industry is gaining access over its practical carrying capacity." After we received that analysis, and that was conducted for an assumption of a speed limit of 55 miles per hour, After we received that analysis, we did receive, I think it was an email from a concerned citizen who had spoken with somebody with NCDOT maintenance and said that maintenance told them the speed limit was going to be changed or reduced to 45 miles per hour. So with that information, I reached out to NCDOT District Engineer Chuck Edwards and received this email response on February the 19th. And he listed 3 items. And that would be that the speed limit would be reduced from 55 to 45 miles per hour within the next 6 to 8 weeks. They would install truck entering highway signs at various points along Clap Mill Road within the next 6 to 8 weeks. And that they would widen travel lanes on the inside of curves and resurface the entire length of Clap Mill Road within calendar year 2026. So given this change, we went back to the engineers and we said, if your intent to construct permit is approved, there's a high likelihood that by the time your operations permit is in effect, then the speed limit will have changed from 55 to 45. So could you please run that analysis at 45 miles per hour? And in fact, they did, and you will see that in Appendix P of the compliance schedule as well. And just to go through the numerical analysis on that, the trips per day and the anticipated truck trips do not change. So you have a total of 677. But the new carrying capacity at 45 miles per hour is 12,100. And so you're still in excess of 11,000 for the remaining carrying capacity for Clap Mill Road. Subsection G deals with the operations area of a regulated use. And specifically, it does not allow 3 items to be in that operations area. A flood hazard area as depicted within the civil site plan, any wetlands or woody swamps. And for that, in Appendix C, you'll see that the applicant has furnished a letter from Wetland Solutions LLC. Nor does it allow, if there's any designation of habitat for identified species of greatest conservation need. And for that, they furnished a letter dated July 10th, 2025 from the North Carolina Heritage Program. Similar to flood zones, there is a requirement that 100-foot stream buffer be established from all for the operations area. That is shown on sheets 1, 2, 3, 4, and 7 of the civil site plan. Item I deals with landscaping and screening. The applicant has elected to keep in place the 50-foot perimeter buffer around the area of operations, and that's shown on sheet 1 of the civil site plan. There is one encroachment for a temporary sediment basin, and the details of that basin and the replanting plan at the end of that sediment basin's life are detailed in Appendix A of the compliance schedule. Item J deals with gating and fencing, and you can see on sheet 1 that they're proposing a 6-foot perimeter fence around the property with a gated entrance and a self-locking gate as shown on sheet 2A of the civil site plan. The next item, K, deals with lighting and requires walkways and other areas be lighted. Those details are shown additionally on sheet 2A of the civil site plan. Item L deals with compliance with other governmental regulations. In other words, the applicant must demonstrate to us that they're going to comply with any other state and federal permits. That's found in Appendix D of the UDO compliance schedule. Similar to that, and this is moving on to the next section in the ordinance, 6.5.4A requires that the applicant conduct a pre-application meeting with staff at least 14 days prior to submitting their application. And that's exactly what they did on January the 23rd. At that meeting, they must submit to us, similar to the previous document that I showed you, they must submit to us a list of all compliance with any other governmental regulations, and that is found in Appendix E of the compliance schedule. 6.5.4B deals with intent to construct permits, and in the first section there, it requires that no construction activities take place prior to receiving the intent to construct permit. There was some debate about this before the planning board, and they requested that staff conduct a site visit to verify that. And so on the right-hand side, you'll see a memo after we conducted a site visit in December of 2025 that we shared with the planning board. The applicant then requested 2 site visits as well, and those were conducted on February the 24th and March 11th of this year. And that immediately preceded their TRC, Technical Review Committee review, as well as the public hearing before the planning board. Item B deals with public hearing and notice requirements both for staff and the applicant. And on this slide, you'll see the letter that we sent, that staff sent to all adjoining property owners, and the sign that we placed at the property, both on February 27th. And then this is just kind of a snapshot of all of the required feature of the applicant's public hearing and notice requirements: a run in the newspaper, mailed notice or emailed notice to regional media, a sign also placed at the site, and then certified mail receipts for mail sent to all adjoining property owners in Appendix T. And then finally, 6.5.4B requires a groundwater and well study, and the details of that are found in Appendix N of the UDO compliance schedule. So once all these documents are in place, as I mentioned earlier, in terms of the administrative review process, we certify a completed application and we send that to the planning board. And so completed applications shall be presented to the planning board for a public hearing and determination of compliance with the requirements of the ordinance. If the planning board determines that the applicant is compliant with the requirements, they shall forward their approval to the county commissioners for final approval. Or if they were to deny, then they would have to do so in writing. And so, as was mentioned earlier, the planning board held a public hearing on February the 12th and ultimately voted 6-1 to recommend approval. So again, that brings us back to where we are today with the commissioner's role in the review process. So you may be asking yourselves, if we approve, what does that mean? If we deny, what does that mean? Obviously, it sounds like we're going to have maybe a delay and another couple of weeks to deal with this. Just briefly, if there is a denial, as I mentioned earlier, that can be appealed and would be appealed to the Board of Adjustment in this case. If there's approval, that's not really the end of the process. Essentially, the applicant moves on to what's known as the operations permit process. And under that process, there's a little bit of a time constraint remaining in the intent to construct permit. So they would have within 1 year to commence construction on the site, and then they would have within 1 year of the final item on the pre-application document to receive their operations permit. If there are any changes to the site prior to that, then they have to submit that back to us for additional review. Once the site is built out, then the applicant must submit a final as-built site survey confirming that it was built the way that it was approved, and then staff must confirm the same with a site visit to the property. They must also submit a spill containment plan and proof of compliance with any other federal, state, or local government permits. And then once they receive the operations permit, that must be displayed conspicuously on the property. That's still not even the end of the process. So that operations permit is valid for a period of 2 years. Staff has to continue conducting site visits every 2 years to verify that there is continued compliance with our ordinance and other applicable laws. So that's a snapshot of the review process and the detail of the application. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have, and the engineers are here for the applicant as well for any kind of detailed technical questions you may have.
I just have a question about this 45 miles per hour. You've seen traffic court lined up around the courthouse, haven't you? People don't go the speed limit. Is this road going to be widened? Just kind of give me the ins and outs of what this is, because, I live on Trail 6 and the trails are very skinny. If I had a big dump truck or a school bus coming, I would have to wait because we don't meet each other. I can remember when they built Smith Elementary and then the Delaney Commons. My son was 3 or 4 years old, and we used to sit in the yard and watch all the bulldozers. It was just, for a little boy, it was just the ultimate thing. And it was a mess while it was all going. Red mud coming across the street, and now I got the best neighbors, a school and Delaney Commons. I can remember when they didn't want Trinity worship up on Church Street because it was a church, and they had to build this like the Great Wall of China around their church because the neighbors didn't want that. I thought, good Lord, you're going to have a church as a neighbor. So I just, DOT has a, I had to give Amy Gailey, one of my kidneys, to get a stoplight down there at Southeast High School because we put that giant high school in the middle of that field, and then everybody had to learn how to drive all over again. Teenage drivers, school buses, parents in a hurry. We had a lot of accidents. We didn't have anybody to die, thank the good Lord. But I know how safety is. It just happens because we get busy, with 10 Commandments, we don't follow them either. So I'm just curious how this great big DOT excursion to that road is going to make that road safer, because I don't think we're going to have a deputy dog sitting out there with a whistle blowing at everybody, like, slow down, because, people talk on their phones. They don't pay attention to what we're doing. And I just want to make sure everything's safe, not just for me to drive my Honda out there, but for some truck that's taking my crepe myrtles that I cut that's gone out there. I want it safe for both sides, but that is all relying on us being responsible drivers and neighbors. So what are they going to do to that road that's going to make it so much better?
Yeah, so all we got from the district engineer, as you see in the third point of the email there, was to widen the travel lanes on the inside of the curves and to resurface the entire length of the road. So I don't know if that resurfacing will result in any marginal widening whatsoever. This isn't really a situation, and I'm not really aware of any situation where the county or a department can compel the DOT to upgrade the road to a certain standard. I think this was partly in response to a lot of citizen concerns for the road, both the speed limit, the signs, and then the partial widening. But I'm not sure that I know we can't compel DOT to do anything different with the road.
Any other questions?
I had this question about, with the permitting process and where we're going, if this is approved, is there a limitation for where debris can come from, or is it just open to any area? They can take any truck that comes down the road? Or is that part of this process?
That's a good question. Yeah, the ordinance doesn't speak to where the vegetative debris may come from. I don't know if there's a state, there's a facet of the state permit that limits that geographically. You mean debris may be trucked in from a neighboring county or?
Yeah, it doesn't bother me so much, when we take care of our own. And I can't imagine that this, debris from clearing would come in too far out, but then again, it could. And I just hate to see that we become a trash dump for a whole region beyond the state of North Carolina, perhaps even. And that's just one concern that I have. And another question I had was, does the permit reside with the owner or with the business? And if the business or the owner sells it, it's transferred to the new owner?
I would assume it resides with the owner. The language in the ordinance is the applicant. Somebody can't really apply on an owner's behalf without their consent. So I assume it would be the owner of the property.
And so if it's sold and the owner has a permit, then he can transfer that permit to a new owner.
We've interpreted it that way in the past, yes. That the permit runs with the land and with the business, not with the person who does the initial application.
Is that like Meridian?
Yes.
Is this a 90-mile thing?
So there's no contract at this point between the business and the county, no franchise agreement that would lay out any limitations on where things would come from. I don't know that state law necessarily speaks to a limitation on where debris can come from to a landfill either. There are practical limitations. Diesel, the last I saw, is $6 a gallon. So at some point there's going to be a cost limitation on that. But no, there's not a legal limitation that I'm aware of.
Thank you.
And I think that's something that we ought to look for in the future, that we ought to put some limitations on that. If we're going to have landfills in the county, that we don't allow abuse of our property and what we are allowing here in Alamance County.
Understand.
All right, I agree that we shouldn't become a dumping ground for every surrounding county. And I would like to see that added on also if possible. Commissioner, you have any questions?
Back in and then back to me,
Yeah, I'm moving the line. Okay.
I'll go.
Okay.
That way Steve can respond.
okay.
It seems to me that there's some tacit acknowledgement, at least at one of the planks in your presentation, of safety concerns. There's an adjustment, the speed limit from 55 to 45, an acknowledgement that we're going to have, again, a whopping increase in the traffic. 677 trips per day. Now, is that, my question in that respect is that characteristic of dump trucks and large carrying capacity vehicles? Or is that just talking about the Hondas and
So my understanding is that's the entire universe of vehicles on the road when you count
Right.
smaller Honda sedans or all the way up to dump trucks.
So-
That's where that 677 is.
so conceivably, that could mean 300 dump trucks on a particular day. Who's somebody's,
Yeah, the analysis from the engineer is approximately 76.2, I believe.
all right, but it could go over that for all we know. That's a guesstimate. So here's I'm going to make a suggestion as part of my comments, and it's not exactly directed to you. I think it would be fair for us to hear the objections specifically to the plan as you presented it. You've acknowledged that these things all appear to be in order. So you've had about 15 minutes at the podium, 10 or 15 minutes. I think a fair thing for our deliberation next go round would be to give the same amount of time, roughly, to the folks that have objections specifically to the plan. And for my money, specifically to the safety concerns. I'd like to know more about it. Maybe the plan, as you've observed, is flawed and needs to be reconsidered. So I think that would be fair to all the parties involved to address exactly what the plan is so that the applicant has due process and that the folks who are objecting to aspects of the plan specifically have a chance to respond before we make our choice. Thanks.
Thank you. I'm the only member of this board who's been through this once before. And quite frankly, we're damned if we do and we're damned if we don't, if you'll excuse my French. I mean, we went through it with the Alamance aggregates. To be perfectly honest, I've not heard a single complaint that I can recall since they opened and began operation in southern Alamance County down in Snow Camp. We had an overwhelming amount of turnout to people who wanted to oppose it. I don't remember anybody locally that supported it except the owner-operators of it. We were in the similar situation. If they punched all the check marks, we had basically no opportunity to do anything but to approve it. Says shall approve. I can't imagine. I've heard even this cycle in the election, I've heard of people saying they're not going to vote for me because of the Alamance aggregates issue. Didn't have any choice. Doesn't make any difference. I mean, people will do what they want to do. We have to do the right thing based on what we have before us. When I came to Alamance County, we had around 155,000 citizens. We now have around 186 to 187,000 citizens. So we've grown 32,000 people. By 2035, we're supposed to have 205,000 citizens in Alamance County. By 2050, it's projected to grow to 235,000 citizens in Alamance County. So we will have grown 80,000 people in that period of time. Now, with that comes all sorts of issues, none the least of which was all my neighbors who had yard debris out in spring cleaning of their yards, clipping shrubs and flowering plants and whatnot and laying them out in the street for the city to pick up. It has to go someplace.
Are you making your comment?
I don't know what we're faced with. I do understand that there are people who want to I've heard some comments that people would like to have a little bit more time to meet with the Philippi attorney and talk to him. I think some of the folks that are opposed to it would like to have their attorney have a chance to meet and talk. And I think I've heard that they also might like to have some conversations in addition with our county attorney. So I'd like to make a motion that we defer a decision on this application until our April the 20th meeting and give the folks an opportunity to discuss it. We're not going to make everybody happy, no matter what we do. We're not going to make everybody happy. We have to do what we have to do, but that at least gives them an opportunity to have some more conversation. This thing has been deliberated for a long time by our planning department. I don't think we need to extend this out 6, 8, 9 months. I don't see any reason for that.
I think we need to go. I'll second that motion.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
No, anybody opposed to April 20th making the decision?
Just want to make sure it's April 20th. I
Sure.
don't want to be 99
That's
years
all.
old and hearing y'all talk about this.
That's gonna be the record.
I'd like to revisit my suggestion that we invite the folks who object specifically to points on the presentation by the planning director.
Okay, so you don't think that what's already been put out and what everyone has said to us at every meeting is sufficient for what the traffic and
No.
the smoke
No,
and the
in short.
ash and all that is not gonna be enough? So
No.
you're gonna allow every participant to speak
No.
for 15 minutes?
That's not what I'm suggesting.
Okay, just making
No,
sure here.
What I'm suggesting is, for example, one of the speakers, Mr. Gowd, as I recall, said 3 minutes isn't enough to cover it. I'm not saying that we shotgun it and allow everybody to talk about everything. I'm suggesting that we have one speaker appointed by the folks who are objecting, address the specific points that Mr. Hoagland has delivered to us. My understanding is that the legal point here is that we're obliged to acknowledge and vote for the application if every point has been addressed appropriately. And if one or two important ones, like safety, have not been addressed appropriately, we should consider that, because that would basically disqualify the application. I'm not talking about we have other objections that there are particular birds that we need to protect and other things. Those have been addressed in the application. So specifically limited to the amount of time that the presenter, Mr. Hoagland, presented, to the points of the application that he presented. They can refute or rebut, and then we have an opportunity to decide whether or not due process has been achieved for the applicant.
So, I'm sorry, go ahead.
The board can certainly hear from whoever they want. I think it might be hard to pin down who that one person is to address all of those points. I don't know that there's going to be a consensus amongst the people who decide they don't want it as to who that representative should be. That may be the practical difficulty in trying to do what you're trying to do. And I also want to make sure that the board is not of the assumption that the county has a position on this for or against. We're just telling you what's been approved by the boards already. So Mr. Hoagland doesn't necessarily speak for the landfill. He's just presenting the position that's been taken by the planning board.
But Mr. Stevens, if we find a material deficit, a flaw in the application, then we're certainly entitled, I think, legally, to not vote in favor of the application until it's repaired at the very least.
Absolutely. I will say, though, that if this board decides to vote against the permit, the next step is not back to the planning board. The next step is to the Board of Adjustment. So I think the most important thing to remember is that for or against, we have to take action at some point. I don't think 2 weeks is a problem, but I think certainly delaying it perpetually is an issue.
Well, I'm of the understanding that they've engaged an attorney, and quite possibly the attorney would be the appropriate person to make any accusations.
He may be. It's hard to know exactly who's represented in a situation like this. There's a lot of people with a lot of different objections. I don't know who's represented by that attorney, who's not. That person may be an appropriate person to speak, may not be. I've heard from counsel as to both sides of this issue in the last several weeks. So if we can agree that they give a presentation, I think the board can certainly be they can certainly hear that.
Mr. Stevens, if we charge the chair with selecting the speaker for that particular point of view, would that be any objections to that? Any downside?
I don't think there's a problem with that.
Beg your pardon?
He does not think there's a problem with us
Okay.
appointing someone to speak for that,
The chair appoints someone.
the chair.
And we would welcome that opportunity.
Then I would suggest that perhaps the newly hired attorney would be the one to stand up and voice everyone's concern.
I don't think we need to make that selection today. I think it might be appropriate for us to try to meet with interested parties and figure out who should speak.
Okay,
And I'll remind the board also that we've had a public hearing on this. So it's not that people haven't had an opportunity to be heard. Public hearing was open-ended in terms of length. There was no limitation on the number of speakers or the number of, well, there was a number of minutes they had, but not necessarily a limit on the number of speakers. So people had a chance to be heard at that public hearing.
right,
Thank you.
okay.
And that's all captured in the planning board meeting minutes as well. I'll be happy to forward those along to the commissioners.
Okay, that'll be great.
Of course, as part of due process, the applicant should have the opportunity to respond to anything that opponent.
Correct. Correct.
Absolutely.
It'd have to be both.
And just today, we heard all kind of variations on the same side. A husband and wife, she didn't want it at all, and he just don't want smoke and ash. Now, they got to go home and talk about that. But, I mean, this is real varied, and it should be because everybody's got their own opinion.
Correct.
But, this does not need to keep being drug out.
Amen.
It just doesn't.
Well, you know, over the years,
Are you doing commissioner comments or are you wait till commissioner comments?
I'll wait till.
Thank you.
Comments, yeah.
Okay, thank you,
Thank you.
Matthew. We appreciate it. All right, so the next one is the Alamance Burlington School System approval of a lease purchase contract. Yeah. And let's give everybody a moment that wants to go ahead and leave.
Appreciate it, man.
Can we take 5 minutes?
I've been asked to take a 5-minute break. I'll need a second.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. 5-minute break. Okay, so the next presentation is from the Alamance Burlington School System approval of the lease purchase contract.
Good morning, Madam Chair, County
morning.
Commissioners. My name is Dennis Fry. I'm the Chief Technology Officer. I'm here with Greg Hook, our Deputy Superintendent of Operations, and representing the school system. We are requesting authorization to enter into a 5-year lease purchase agreement with Apple Financial Services for 5,450 student iPads and supporting equipment. The annual obligation of $423,906.82 will be funded through the Technology Department's 2025-26 budget, which has been allocated this year of $425,000 by the county commissioners for student device replacement. Because the agreement entails a multi-year financial commitment, it requires final approval from the county commissioners. This request was approved by the ABSS Board of Education on March 23rd, 2026, for subsequent presentation and consideration at the county commissioners meeting this morning on April 6th.
So this is going to be a recurring yearly charge, but it's under contract, so it will not be going up every year, but this will be a recurring charge
Good question.
that the county commissioners will have to come up with that money.
Yeah, it is a recurring fixed charge. We're able to get this and save some money. It's a 0% lease purchase. Yes.
Yeah.
So the amount is preset per year.
Yes,
Inflation's not going to
correct.
cause it to go up. Is that why you did it in this way?
We did it in this way to gradually meet an obligation of end of year
end of life age of equipment, and not have a single purchase all at one time.
So this is to replace equipment as it's aging out?
Yes, that's correct. This will replace equipment right now that is about 6.5 years old.
So this is going to be about a $2 million contract that we're going to enter into,
Yes.
obligation?
Yes.
What happened to the $1.6 million contract for the Chromebooks?
We used that to replace aging equipment last year.
Okay.
So this is a different set of equipment that's being aged
Yeah,
out.
yeah, it's iPads we're talking about,
This will be replacing Chromebooks.
with iPads.
Yes.
All right.
Aging Chromebooks that are now aged out, like the group we had last year.
You remember the conversation we had on December 16th, 2024 about that Chromebook contract? I asked you at the time whether or not this is the thing, whether we're going to be living through this contract. And your response was basically, yeah, the Chromebooks were the thing. And I think they should remain the thing, part of my questioning. So I have a little bit more time. I'd like to take a little bit of time, Madam Chair.
Now you have several questions.
I do.
Okay.
Thank you. We had that conversation and Chromebooks were the thing. I've got a statement that I'm going to read basically about this. I think it's a mistake, and of course I'd like your response when I'm through. Forgive me, it'll take several minutes to read through it. I think this is a mistake first because it defies state standards. According to the North Carolina Digital Learning and Media Inventory, the state agency charged with inventorying equipment, North Carolina districts overwhelmingly standardized Chromebook devices. Of the 2.2 million reported devices, 90.37% are Chromebooks. Only 1.0% are Apple products, these Apple iPads that you're referring to. It ignores fundamentally your request, to my observation, ignores the infrastructure and complicates regional support collaboration. The second reason I think it's a mistake is because of the academic regression involved. There is peer-reviewed research that I've read, 2021 in particular, shows that tablet reading can be detrimental to low-skilled primary grade students, particularly under the time-constrained conditions common in classrooms. You're targeting with the original iPad purchase to buy, lower grade classrooms, right? What grade levels are you talking about?
It'll be K through 5.
K through 5. So it includes what I just mentioned, but it particularly is detrimental, according to peer review studies, to those lower achieving students. The higher achieving students, according to the research, will do quite well. They'll do well on any platform. It's the ones that are low performing that there's a concern about. So on top of the research, more recently, North Carolina school districts re-examined their viewpoints and shifted away from iPads. Guilford County in 2013 launched a $33 million initiative for middle schoolers, the same class of students we're talking about, using iPads. Ultimately, that program was described by a local news outlet, CBS as I recall, as a quote-unquote meltdown. Within 2 months, the district suspended the program and recalled 15,000 devices. Charlotte Mecklenburg Schools is another example. They experimented with iPads, although they still allow very young students, pre-K through second grade. They now strictly transition students in grades 3 through 12 to Chromebooks again for the more complex tasks that they're going to find in the workforce. And my third reservation about this is that of instructional distraction. Unlike the work-first design, quote-unquote, keyboard-integrated Chromebooks, students and educators frequently perceive iPads as gaming environments. Are these iPads going to come with keypads? iPads with keypads? Keyboards.
These iPads are coming with virtual keypads on the device itself.
On
It's
the
a touch
device.
screen
Okay,
environment.
versus just the touch part.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're proposing a $2 million shift from the Chrome pads to the Apple products. In light, I'm gonna, Madam Chair, a little bit later, maybe this is not the right time, I'm gonna move to postpone this purchase of that technology until we have a good understanding and we allow for the completion of a more complete cost-benefit review and the performance of this contract. The review that I'm suggesting we should have is the functional status and utilization of the 22,000 Chromebooks as they are now, because I don't have a complete understanding, or we're just going to discard that whole system. A localized assessment of why we are pivoting to non-standard platforms such as Apple. It's necessary given the current 1.07% adoption rate in North Carolina. I think this is legally sound. Under North Carolina General Statute 143-129 E6, school districts are generally required to use competitive bidding for a large purchase. A quote-unquote sole purpose or brand-specific exception, which I think is the case here, for a platform shift is this magnitude is only permissible if the board finds standardization or compatibility is the overriding consideration. Given that 90% of the state and our own recent 1.6 million investment in Chromebooks, a shift to Apple contradicts the statutory preference for standardization. Furthermore, North Carolina Department of Public Instruction requires, to my reading, a formal price analysis and written justification explaining why a specific brand is singularly able to meet unique technical needs. Mr. Frey, was there any bidding on this contract?
Yes,
Who else was participating in the bidding?
this is a state contract.
Is a state contract? So, but there's only one bidder fundamentally for the Apple products.
There could be multiple.
Okay, but were there?
I'm not sure.
Okay, well, I think that's an important thing to know. We're giving a contract away, and it's not the first time that ABSS is giving contracts away, to my thinking, of being ill-advised. And this is not your department, but the very same meeting that you referred to, where we received a 6-1 vote in favor of the Apple products, the Board of Education voted to adopt a contract with a group that has been sued in court for lack of performance, for 4 years lack of performance, in the very same meeting. So they're not the same subject matter, but it does speak to the nature of how we adopt contracts at ABSS. I obviously invite you to respond. That concludes my comments.
Would you like to respond to some of his questions?
Is there a specific question?
No.
Wait a minute, you're going to respond, but there's no specific question. What's that mean? Do you want to respond? I don't have a specific question. Well, how does that work?
I made a
What can
statement.
Dennis respond to if you don't have a specific?
Yeah, I made a statement. This is an ill-advised contract, and we ought to postpone our consideration of it at the very least.
Okay. We bought Chromebooks before, didn't we?
We bought Chromebooks.
Yes.
We've had iPads
Right,
for
we bought-
many years in our
Right.
school district.
And
The iPad is nothing new.
right,
It is not a new platform.
exactly.
Our youngest kids have been using iPads in numerous schools.
Right.
Um,
Do we do all the maintenance ourselves?
Did we do all the maintenance
Yeah.
on,
The Chromebooks?
yes,
Okay, when you lease Apple, they do all your maintenance, right?
no,
They don't?
No.
Because I know whenever we were thinking about leasing before, I was supportive of that.
yes.
Because the spin was they would handle any kind of maintenance because the IT department at ABSS is little compared to Apple coming in and take care of their machines.
It would be an additional cost.
Any idea how much that additional cost would be?
It's somewhere from, I think, Apple Care on top of these devices is somewhere around $69 per device. We have never had that level of repair cost, even during COVID.
Right.
for any devices. So it would not be fiscally responsible to enter into that agreement. So plus additionally, we're adding cases to these devices to protect them.
Because they do take them home.
No,
They don't?
these will not be going home.
Okay, because I
These
know
will be in-
before they had been.
Yes,
And,
these will stay at school. I can speak to a few things. You speak to the pedagogy or the learning environment of an iPad. We are making sure that students are not in front of devices all day long, nor is their curriculum totally in an online environment. The iPad gives us a little more flexibility to meet focused needs of individual students. We know we have eliminated cell phones in the schools, and it has made a dramatic change. We understand that just allowing a student to have a device and do with it as they may during the day is not good for their social well-being. It's not good for their mental well-being. It's certainly not appropriate in a learning environment. So thanks for bringing that up. We have a curriculum now that we are implementing in the elementary schools for the first time in a very long time. This will be a part of that. This will be able to meet the digital needs as part of that curriculum focus. It will give teachers the ability to target individual needs for students that can benefit when they use the technology. It will not be used all day long. For students that don't benefit from reading on the device, they'll have separate materials to read from. We certainly pay attention to research and don't try to implement technology that works against the student. It's only there to support them when it's needed and is guided by a teacher who has been skillfully trained in how to use it in the classroom.
Can you provide us with some of the research that you're relying on to move from Chromebooks to Apple products?
I certainly can. I don't have it with me right now, but absolutely. And we visited other schools in North Carolina too. And we watched the implementation of iPads and the use with students at a variety of different environments. And they've been successful when the school was successfully led and the teachers were successfully trained in how to use them appropriately. You speak to some changes that other school districts have made, particularly the issue that they had in Guilford, which was with a different device, by the way. It wasn't an iPad. And yes, they had to make an adjustment. There are some districts that are going from iPads to, or have gone from iPads to Chromebooks to try to save money. The Apple iPad now has decreased in cost from $399 to $325. At the same time, the Chromebook has increased in price from $250 to $320. So the price comparison is very similar. One of the schools that I visited in the state here about a couple of months ago, they have 5-year-old iPads. If they were to sell them today, they would be worth $100 each. We are hoping that at the end of the life of these, that we can recoup some of that money and rotate it back into supporting additional devices in the future, saving money. So we think that this is going to be a net savings of money at the end of life for this, because they will retain their value better than the Chromebooks. Our Chromebooks, maybe we can get $5 or $10 out of them, and that's all at the end of their life. So there is important considerations in that, and that's why that is a reason why we never really asked for Chromebooks before, because they were much more expensive. We were able to get iPads. They were much more expensive. They were over $400. Once you added all the peripherals on, and then our Chromebooks we were getting them for about $225 each. And so there's a huge difference. They almost double the cost, and now they're almost equal. So we think it's a more fiscally sound environment. Because they have touchscreen environments, the students can engage more with the applications, especially the students at the lower grades. So when that's needed, that's more appropriate. Chromebooks are still appropriate. They're appropriate for our online applications that students can go to and engage with, and we think that is more appropriate at the higher levels right now. We'll see as we go forward whether they need more engagement or they could benefit from more engagement directly with apps on a device. But right now, they are working online with applications that they're engaging with directly through the Chromebook through an online source, not directly on a device.
Commissioner Powell, you have yours?
I was just wondering, you change it to a different device. So we hope that it would work. It might not. What if a year later you discover that, well, maybe this new device is not working as well as we had hoped, and you decide maybe to go back to the old, and I'd be speaking of Chromebook, so why go 5 years is the question. Why not just go year to year to year?
Well, because the device lasts that long. We have already.
I understand that. I'm saying, why buy? If you're replacing older devices with a new device, and you're going to have to continue to replace old devices for years.
Right.
Yeah. So why do it 5 years at a time? Why not just do it each year?
Why not purchase them each year?
Yeah. Why are you looking at a 5 year window to go to purchase these? Why not just do it annual?
If we have your support, we would love to do it annually. We would prefer to do it annually. We would like to, at the end of the day, if I'm not answering your question correctly, they last 5 years. It would be preferable to purchase them up front and keep them for 5 years, and then rotate them out. The thing that usually determines the 5 year window is the capacity of the device itself. The battery lasts about that long. For one thing, we would have to replace batteries. The peripherals usually are different at that point in time, and I'm talking about devices that connect to them. For example, now we are buying headsets with a different plug in them. So things change. So 5 years is a good point that meets a fiscal need and a technical need. It's a good marriage of the two time frames. Is why. Am I answering your question?
Well, let me take one more stab at it. The Chromebooks are what we were replacing.
Correct.
Right? And we're replacing them with the Apple iPad.
Just a group of Chromebooks, yes.
1,000 a year.
No, this is about 5,000.
5,000 for 5 years, but
Yeah.
1,000 a year.
No, we have 23,000 students.
Right.
And 2,500 and so staff. We have about 25,000 devices on our network at any given day.
I understand.
So this is just a portion of
This is
that.
just a portion.
Yes,
So you're replacing a portion of what you have.
yes. So that,
And you're planning to do this on an annual basis. So each year, you will replace a portion where the purchase is for 5,000 total units.
Correct.
Which would be over 5 years, that's 1,000 a year, right?
now we would need to replace around 5,000 per year
Per year.
in order to meet the need of 25,000 over 5 years.
Okay. So I
Yes.
understand.
Plus, with staffing requirements to support these and to set them up and deploy them, we can't do more than that. We don't have enough manpower to
So
put out that number at any
So
one
what
time.
you're saying, you're basically switching over from Chromebooks to Apple iPad.
No, we're just replacing a portion of the elementary Chromebooks right now with iPads. And we would, based on the success of this, be able to do the same thing next year with the rest of the elementary schools. Yes. Plus, we're trying to create a level budget so that this is a normal cost going forwards, that there's not a $20 million purchase made 1 year and 4 years later another $20 million purchase needing to be made.
even budget that allows a series of devices to be replaced.
Will there be a school-wide training for these new devices?
Yes, we've already started that. That's another reason that we are approaching this in this manner, is because Apple is supporting some curriculum development with our professional learning with our teachers. And they've already been, our lead teachers in 3 schools of a pilot have already been through that. So we're already seeing some of the application of this, and we're seeing that our teachers are excited about it, our students are excited about it, and in a strategic and methodical way, we want to put this out so that it can be the best that we can give our students right now.
Got a couple more questions. Following up Commissioner Powell's question, your plan is to acquire something like 5,600 iPads a year. But that's a whole, if you do that through what you pointed out in the 5-year plan, that's more than just the elementary kids at a certain level. That's all of the 23,000 students, isn't it?
It would be if that were the case, but right now we are just focusing on implementing this at the elementary level.
But in your packet, you want a resolution to approve the 5-year plan.
Yeah, because this would be a lease of 5 years for these 5,000 devices.
Okay. And then the next question, you mentioned that well, let me ask you this way. The Guilford meltdown with the 15,000 iPads was as a result of hardware fragility, specifically broken screens and smashed cases, which you addressed a little earlier. Are you convinced that Apple has resolved all those problems, even if it's with a different platform?
I didn't know that was not an Apple device.
That's according to the local news report. Maybe they were wrong.
It was a different device.
Beg your pardon?
It was a different device.
All right, but they still had those problems, and you're saying that the current iPads, to your examination, don't have those problems.
Well, I just visited a elementary school down in Craven County. They've not had those problems with iPads over the past 5 years.
And then you mentioned this.
We haven't either. We've had iPads that have been purchased in our school district over the past 5 years, and we have not had any experiences with them like that.
All right. And then you mentioned that this is a state contract. And in your packet, you had a contract from Minnesota, the state agency in Minnesota. Why did you include that in your package? Is it a model of the contract?
It's a consortium vehicle, purchasing vehicle.
So you're going through Minnesota for this purchase?
No. It's the state allows contracts to be vetted and pushed through consortium purchasing agreements. So the state has approved, or this is a consortium purchase that is competitively bid over large numbers of school districts or purchasing agencies.
So forgive me, what does that got to do with Minnesota?
That just happened to be the consortium that Apple used to bid through.
So they're bidding through Minnesota for a contract in North Carolina with our county school system.
It is a consortium purchasing agreement that Apple has used as a way to meet bidding requirements for the state of North Carolina.
Yeah, forgive me, I don't understand the consortium concept here, how it plays out for Alamance County, North Carolina, with the Minnesota school system. And by the way, it's part of their school system that's part of it, which has some of these fraud problems, which we've heard about recently, mounting in the tens of millions of dollars. That concerns me.
I don't think that is related in any way to anything other than the ability for K-12 institutions to make a purchasing arrangement through that consortium. That consortium is not, you would have to speak to Apple about that, or you'd have to speak to our legal. Tharrington Smith vetted the contract, and they agreed that this was a legal.
Maybe I'm off base on this, so, I would like to have some more clarification when we move along.
Commissioner Carter, did you have any questions?
Um,
Questions, please.
Well, I had an observation. I'm using an iPad that the county provides for us, and one side of me is very happy with it. Matter of fact, I liked it so much, I bought the one that they replaced this one with when it aged out. But the other side of that is I have to absolutely admit that the difference in an Android and an Apple product, they're not even close when you're trying to use them from an operational perspective on a lot of common business software. I mean, the business software we use on here, I bought a new laptop just to maintain the business software because I'm so familiar with using Microsoft Office the way it works, and it doesn't work the same way on an Apple product. But I can understand why you wouldn't want to mix the two hardware packages in a classroom, because teachers working with a student would have to deal with some of the, I'm thinking, would have to deal or could have to deal with some of it in different ways on different hardware packages. But if you're buying $5,000 a year, $5,600 a year, roughly,
It would be a different-
buying $5,600 and financing them over 5 years.
Yeah, and then that number is set because the amount budgeted.
So as we add an additional $5,600 next year, and the next year at some point, we're going to be paying $1.2 million, $1.3 million for the replacement of these items within the schools on an annual basis.
Correct.
Anything else?
Do you have a deadline as to when you need this approved, Mr. Fry? Are you?
Apple has a deadline of at the end of March was to get our board, our school board for approval for us to preserve a 0% loan. After that time period, we would be in a 2.99%.
End of March?
Yeah, we've got that approval. So we got the board approval, but contingent upon this meeting. So Apple is holding a 0% financing based on the results of this meeting. If we were to go any further, that would increase to 2.99%.
It's come to us past your deadline. Right?
There-
Deadline was March 31 and this is now April.
Or do you have to the end of April to get to get it from us? When does the holding for the commissioner's approval end? I think that's what they're asking.
So I'm being told this meeting will suffice. That's what Apple's telling me.
Mr. Booth?
Please.
Yeah, you can answer a question if you can.
I just wanted to speak to kind of the history, because some of the questions that have come up. I know we have new Board of Commissioner meeting members, so I wanted to go back a couple of years. In here, a couple of years during budget, a couple of years ago during budget season, we put up, probably for the first time ever, with our capital request, Commissioner Carter, you probably remember that. We put up a technology budget, 5-year technology budget as part of our capital request. I think prior school administration didn't realize that technology is part of capital. So when we put it up there at that time, I recall Commissioner Turner was sitting here and he looked at Finance Director Susan Evans and said, don't we have a stream of funding to cover that? I'm pretty close to the words he used, and she acknowledged, and they actually stood and talked over in that area, and we moved forward with making technology part of capital, which it is. And so that kind of goes to part of the reason that it was in last year's budget and the year before's as well. But at that time, we were presenting the amount of money that it would require in our capital budget to enter into a lease to replace 25% of our devices, student devices per year, not staff devices. That's in a single year outside of this. So at that time, we presented what it would look like to replace 25% of our student devices per year by entering into leases. And the reason we did it at the time, the county budget was very tight. It continues to be tight. And y'all know at the time, the school budget was really tight. So it was to the benefit of the county and to the school system because it allowed us to replace aged and age equipment and equipment that just wouldn't work by entering into these leases. But we all acknowledged that we would enter into that first lease for replacement of devices, and we'd pay on that lease for 5 years. We brought a resolution last year for that. The resolution affirms that you'll continue to put that amount of money to support that lease into the capital budget. That's what this does as well. The resolution is you're affirming that you'll support this lease over the duration of the lease in the capital budget. But by us replacing 25% each year over 4 years, then at the end of the 4 years, we'll have 4 separate leases running. So you're right. I think Commissioner Powell's the person that mentioned, why don't we just pay for them? Well, once we have 4 separate leases running, you will be paying for them, but it allows us to get to that point over time instead of socking the district for the total amount of the full purchase. Because if you purchased, I forgot what the price is, you said it's roughly $400 a device, you're talking over $2 million, $2.25 million, $2.25 million. So if we did say, well, let's just purchase them, which Dennis said, yeah, that's a great idea, let's purchase them. What that would require is the county commissioners to put $2.25 million in the technology budget this year and next year and the next year and the next year and on and on. That's a big ask for you all. So we tried to buffer the ask by going for leases. Yes, we will get to the point where we have $2.25 million or more or less, in the budget every year, year after year, but we don't get there until year 4. So just to clarify the history of what that dollar figure is and why it's there.
Mr. Brooks, the meeting that I participated in after Mr. Turner left the scene was in December 16, 2024. At that time, I inquired with Mr. Frey, as I recall, why are we entering this Chromebook? It was a Chromebook specific contract. Yes, sir. And, so 1 year later, now that Chromebook contract, all of a sudden, I asked at the time, is that going to be the thing in several years, a couple to several years? It turns out a year later, we're going to make a major shift from that technology, which my outstanding question is who benefits? Because I don't think it's the students that benefit from this. So we're making a major shift in technology for something that is 90+% the standard in North Carolina. You'll have to forgive me, but that doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I just want to clarify a couple of points. So I do recall you asking the question, what happens next year or the next year? I'm paraphrasing, but
Yeah.
we're in a Chromebook contract, so we have Chromebooks. We still have those. We purchased those Chromebooks that you all approved last year through resolution, and we still have those, and we fully intend to use them. So as we put iPads into elementary schools, we take their existing Chromebooks that are not aged out and push them up into secondary, middle, and high school and continue to use them for the duration of their lifetime. So none of the devices, except the age devices, go away. That's the total intent of the replacement plan. But what we're doing is we're supplanting a Chromebook in elementary school for an iPad, taking the Chromebooks and pushing them up into secondary where we need to have them because they may have some 6-year-old Chromebooks. So what we have in all of our schools. We didn't purchase all the Chromebooks at one time, obviously. So we have Chromebooks that are age, 1 to 6 years old. And I guess Chromebooks are like people. They're dying all the time. So the ones at the end of their life cycle, they're dead and they've got to go. So we're replacing using this kind of push-ups scheme where we put the iPads in elementary and push the Chromebooks up.
So now that we have a system that's adopted by 90+% of North Carolina school districts, we're going to go to the 1% technology.
Well, what you're pointing out is not a system, it's an inventory. It's just an inventory, a straight inventory. So when you read from what you read from, sure, that's what's present in the schools today. It doesn't imply that's what's present in the schools tomorrow. You're just reading an inventory sheet. So sure, over 90% of the computers in schools are.
2 million computer inventory.
Mhm.
Yeah. That seems to me to be a pretty compelling argument to stick with the standardized technology.
Well, I don't think that inventory sheet is a means to indicate what's best for students. I'm not saying that it's anything other than just an inventory. I'm just saying that's what it is.
I'm very confused by your proposal here. It talks about 5,000 units for a price of $2 million, a little over $2 million. And then there's a, page numbers aren't on here, but for our agenda, it's page 157. But there's a schedule of payment date going for 5 years from May the 1st, 26 to April of 30 at an amount of $423,906.81 per year. And then it counts down the principal from the $2 million request down to zero over 5 years. So now you're saying you want 5,000 computers each year for a total of 25,000, where this proposal looks like it's 5,000 total, 1,000 a year over 5 years. And I don't understand why it's presented this way.
Well, because the lease payment is an annual payment for 5 years. So the total value of what we would
But the
be
lease payment would be $423,000 a year.
correct, because if we were to purchase these outright, it would cost $2.1 million
So the amount.
right now.
The amount of devices is one thing, the number like 5,000 some, but the cost is divided up over 5 years.
Correct.
You're not getting 5,000 books, Apple books a year. It's the
Correct.
total of that many books, but you're dividing the total
Okay,
cost
so
over
that's
5
what I
years.
was saying earlier.
Okay.
So you're asking for a purchase of 5,000 books,
Yes,
and it would be over 5 years.
correct.
So on your proposed budget for 26-27, on line 15 or PRC 015, you've got school technology. Your 25-26 budget was $1,226,000, and your proposed 26-27 budget is $1,326,000. So is this part of that request,
No,
or is it in addition to that?
no, this is last year's request.
Well, it's got on here, the proposed is for 26-27.
That would be next year. Mhm.
And your proposed amount is $1,326,000.
Correct. If we were to do a similar lease next year, the total of the three lease payments, Chromebooks, iPads, and what's purchased next year, we estimate to be, we would budget and limit the purchase to $1.3 million. There would
So
be
that
three
would-
leases.
That would include,
We would include this one as the second one, and next year as a third one, because we're still in the fiscal 25-26 year right now.
thank you.
Sure.
Did you want to make a
I
motion that
do.
you'd like to get the rest of the information? so
Yes.
That you can review it and put it off till April the 20th? Is that what you would? do
That's
now?
my motion. I would like to ask the board to charge the county attorney with a opinion about sole sourcing based on the state law. And then I would like to also have some wait to hear for some of the research that supports the use of iPads as an educational product versus Chromebooks from AVSS. That's my motion.
To be presented on April the 20th.
Yes, please.
I can offer some opinion on that now if you'd like
Okay.
to hear from me on it. I noticed in the packet that they presented, and it's included in your board packet, that they also include a copy of the state's contract here. It's 204N. At the top, it's a state contract for pricing for all state governmental agencies and non-state agencies adopting the pricing from Minnesota. That's a fairly common practice. But this is what we're used to seeing when it comes to state bid contracts. There is a bid exception for state bid contracts, so this seems to be in comport with that. I also just wanted to remind the board that this allocation of funds is not necessarily going to be an increase over the annual appropriation that you normally make for capital to the schools. So they're not asking for more money. They're asking that we commit to spend the 400 and some odd $1,000 they want every year as a part of that. So it's not necessarily a funding increase. And I just want to make sure the board was aware of that. It's in the resolution that's here, and I've reviewed their package and the resolution as well.
Mr. Stevens, I didn't interpret it as an increase in the funding available
Sure.
for technology in this case. But I do have a problem with the shift in technology that appears to me to be unwarranted, which will probably bring in more costs, as well as the academic impact, which I think is without refute. The bidding for the non-standardized technology, 90% plus versus 1.07% is a concern of mine in the no bidding aspect of this.
I can't and certainly won't speak to the merits of the decision-making process on part of the schools, but I can say that it looks like the bidding process looks to be in comport with state law.
Thank you.
Yes.
Just one more, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Just a question. This is coming to us because it's a multi-year process.
Correct.
If it weren't a multi-year process, we would need to be engaged in this conversation.
That's correct, yes.
We also are not in the habit of telling the school board what to use the money we give them for. Is that correct? I mean, if we give them an amount of money and they spend that according to their budgetary needs.
So the Board of Commissioners has some high-level ability to tell the Board of Education how to spend money, but it's limited to different types of things, different types of expenditures at a high level, not at a base level. So this board can't necessarily tell them, we want you to spend it on iPads or Chromebooks.
Well,
We can set aside money for
the
technology.
insinuation from what was said was they want us to agree that this is to be used for this purpose, where that's not really appropriate.
Well, to some extent, if the board chooses not to allocate the money or allow the contract to move forward, then there is some ability to control that spending in that way. But it doesn't say in state law that you can necessarily do that on a line item basis in the annual appropriation.
So really, our decision is, do we want to basically rubber stamp their decision to buy these, to do it over a 5-year period? That's all that is.
That's correct.
That's all they're asking us.
That's correct. And to commit to fund that portion of the annual allocation on an annual basis.
Which is part of the capital plan.
It's not going to increase our capital fund that we're already paying.
That's correct. So we couldn't, in theory, after we approve this, say to them, we're going to give you only $300,000 next year for this. We got to give you at least 423 or whatever the number is.
And that number is already included in the capital funds from previous budget. Is that correct? With what he was saying that we had, that we're already giving them?
I can't speak to that, but it sounds like that's what he said, yes.
Okay, so it's not an additional above what you've already been given. And
Correct.
Correct.
okay.
We're just getting a play-by-play, total transparency of what you're doing.
Well,
And let me ask you one more time, the deadline for you to get 0% When is that? Because your board approved when they were supposed to. It's kind of a done deal. Now it's up to us over the interest rate.
That's what Apple's telling me.
And does that need to be today? Or just,
That's what Apple's telling me.
okay, because I know, when other departments in this county have waited to do things with bond money, and it's cost the county more than double because then the interest rate went way up. So I'd like to make a motion that we accept this contract today.
There's a motion on the
Oh,
table.
I'm sorry. Okay, go ahead.
To be a substitute motion.
Okay. So we did not get a second on Ed's motion to put it off till April the 20th, but that would also cost us from a 0 to increasing the interest on it.
So am I to understand Commissioner Capson's statement is correct, that you have to have a decision today in order to qualify for zero interest? If the 20th of April, I thought I understood earlier you'd said the end of April. It had been the end of March before, correct?
Apple agreed to, if this is approved today, they'll support a 0% interest. If it's delayed, it will increase.
Because their board has already approved it.
By the end of March.
So my understanding is that Apple won't sell us computers at this discount rate if we don't go along with this $2 million contract. It's kind of like buying a car from a used salesman. Said you buy it today or the deal's going to go bad. That is not the way to conduct business, in my opinion. I think we need to delay. Apple is going to sell us the computers because they want $2 million from this county government and the taxpayers.
Well, we've already seen what delaying 5 years on a certain bill has cost us. So I suggest we man up and do what we need to do to get 0%. That's for the taxpayers.
So we had the previous motion that we did not get a second on. Was there anyone that was going to second that? Okay, so that motion dies.
So now I'm making a motion that we accept this contract. Maybe
A
it's,
second on that.
I'll second that.
Okay. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. All opposed?
No.
4-1. Okay, let's move on to the next item. This is the resolution, I believe. Yep, Mr. Baker's going to do that for us.
before you start, I want to ask you a question. It popped up on my Facebook, a picture of Cedar Rock Park on April 1st, and it had sliding boards going over the waterfall with some inner tubes.
That was AI.
And the water was blue. I shared that sucker and I said, look, this is amazing. And I thought, wait a minute, nobody told me about this. And then people are going, Pam, you fell for this so bad. I thought,
AI and April Fool's
I'll get a
Day.
zip line before I get that, I bet. So I'm good, go ahead.
Okay,
Did you do that?
I did not.
Okay,
If I had, it would have been just for your benefit though, so.
it was beautiful.
Yes, please. Good morning, Commissioners. The purpose of this item
Your
is,
mic on.
I don't know. Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. Purpose of this item is to seek authorization to use a design, build, construction method for building the EMS substation in Mebane. It's been some time since we talked about this. You approved the funding for the design portion of this project in last year's budget. So $500,000 is there approved for the design of this building. So because it's been a minute, I'm just going to go back over the reason we're building this in Mebane. And the need for this is because there's a lot of calls coming from Mebane. The closest station to Mebane at this point is in downtown Graham. So all of the calls that we respond to in Mebane are coming from downtown Graham. That is creating a slower response time in Mebane than we would like to see. So our average response time in the county is 10 minutes and 36 seconds. You can see that that is being pushed up because of Mebane. Mebane's response time is 14 minutes and 28 seconds. It's a growing area. We are bringing this item to you because we feel a need to respond to that delay in service. You can see on this map the hot spots where the calls are coming from. They are at Tanger Outlets and the area around there on Mebane Oaks Road, as well as quite a bit in downtown Mebane. So the proposed location for this base is going to be right there on 119, the new 119, after the swap that we authorized last year from Quarry. The 500,000 is there. The projected cost of the building is $5 million. So we would be asking for the additional $4.5 million in this year's budget, as laid out in last year's capital plan. But this is the beginning of that process, but the entire process is not yet funded. So we have waited to begin this process for a couple reasons. Number one, that land swap with Quarry was a wrinkle we didn't really anticipate at the time we brought this to you. It turned out that we got a better piece of property for our purposes. I think the same could be said for Quarry too. They got a piece of property they needed, so it was a win-win for all of us, but it has delayed the process a little bit. We do not yet own this property, but that is expected to be done in the next month or two. So that was a part of our delay. We are waiting for Quarry to be ready. The second reason we've waited a little bit was to kind of evaluate the various construction methods, because we've had a few projects going this year with various construction methods. So we have never yet before done a design build before the Elderly Services Center renovation, which is now the Alamance County Development Center. We've been doing that for the past year. We really wanted to see how that went for us before we committed to do it again, or before we made a decision on what construction method we wanted to use. So we're using a traditional design bid build on the Emergency Services Center, and we're using a design build on the Development Center. We're still a little early on the Emergency Services Center, but I can say with certainty that the process at the Development Center of using design build has gone very smoothly for us. It's the benefit there has really been that we're not trying to negotiate between our architect and our construction company, who are at odds about what was designed, what's going to be built, how much that's going to cost. There is one party to answer to us on all aspects of that development. And as with all construction projects, there's been some things pop up. You know, it hasn't all been perfect. So as we've had to shift and make adjustments to the plan, we've been able to look at Bobbitt, our company there, and say, well, I don't know, you guys designed it, you guys are building it, you fix it. That's been a real advantage for us. So I think that the evaluation of the design build has gone well, and that's why we're bringing this to you to begin this process on the Mebane Center. I won't go through the entire design build process, but we are required for you guys to consider the pros and cons in order to authorize this construction method. The bottom line is design build is all in-house with one company. They design it, they price it, they build it. We've got one contact, one team to answer to. That's the real advantage for us here, in particular because we have a relatively small facilities team. You know, as we finished the design process, Bobby came to me and said, okay, well, now is the time for you to bring everybody, your entire team in to evaluate whether this design is right before we begin construction. And I was like, what do you mean entire team? They're like, well, when we work at other colleges and stuff, they've got about 20 or 30 people who pop out of the woodwork and want to ask a lot of questions. We don't have that. We've got a small group. So being able to have one point of contact responsible for everything eliminates the need for us to try and separately evaluate their designs to see if they're good before we go to construction. So that's the advantage here. So my recommendation is, if we move forward with this project, is that we use the design build construction method beginning now.
So we still don't have the land yet.
We do not.
And you don't foresee that there's gonna be a problem once we go ahead with this, where this would be being built specific to that land of us not receiving that.
I don't, but we've got some notice here. So if you guys say yes today, what that triggers for us is putting together an RFP and putting that process out to bid. That will be open for 6 to 8 weeks. We'll then get those bids back and we'll evaluate those. I would not be comfortable signing a contract with a company until we have that land. So we've got some room there, but no, we do not want to commit funds to a design build company until we own the land and are ready to go with that piece of property.
Any idea how long this would be, the process before it would be completed?
So the transfer of the land, I would expect to be done in the next 6 weeks.
Everything.
The entire building, I would anticipate from the day we start, 12 to 18 months.
Because I had spoke actually to the mayor of Mebane about the possibility of, because this is so far out and for the time length in between response to reaching the emergency and the patient, would they be willing, since they have all these new fire stations, to allow us to put one of our transport vehicles, because they now have a quick response rescue vehicle that they are allowing in one of their buildings, while this is being built to help us out financially and also time-wise, and to provide good service. And at first, they said yes, they thought they could do that. And with keeping the quick response vehicle, which could possibly be outside, and put a transport vehicle, plus, allow the EMTs that are working to have access to showers, food, beds. And he seemed in favor of it. Then I don't know, it was something with either their manager or taking it to their board or something. There was a problem with that, and they said they really didn't think they had room to do that. So, and since we're going to be a year, 18 months out, I thought that would be a good solution until the new one gets built. I'm also really concerned that we do not have the land yet. That's kind of, to me, putting the cart in front of the horse. And I am concerned on the length of time, putting it off also, and not giving good emergency response, because, a lot of people don't realize that how long it takes from the minute you stop breathing till there's brain damage, till there's irreversible and there's death. So I'm kind of in between here on wondering if we could actually start this whole process like the end of June. And I have done through Hall River Fire Department, complete build, that they did the design and everything. We didn't have architects and all that. They did everything. And so far, I'll knock on wood, seems to be going well with that. That's just my comments. Anybody else?
I've just never understood why it couldn't, on Chicago Med and Fire and PD, they're all in the same thing. It works well with SPV. I'm with you, Kelly. I mean, don't dig that dirt up till you own it, because I think right now there's a lawsuit with Mebane and Graham with water down that way building Utopia.
Something they went in together on
Yeah,
the house.
and,
Right.
Buc-ee's. So, but I just know I met with the new EMS director. He's over, God, don't call me out. Met with him last week, and he's probably like, I should have thought about this. But somebody called us from way down Southern Elements about some response time, and he personally handled that for me, and I really appreciate it, because time is everything. I mean, we heard when they had the school bus accident, kids were all over the place, and it's like he and I were talking. It's great to have collaboration with other counties, but they're not sitting around not having anything to do at the time we may need them. We're all going wide open. So I'm 100% support. Mebane needs this big time, because I had 28 break-ins at Tanger Outlets. You got real pro groups come in there, bust out with shoplifting. They get on the interstate, come in there and hit it and get back on. So, we some Navy SEALs down there, but I just do whatever we need to do right. I don't want us to sign anything until we've got the land that we own it to build it. That's all. Because if it can happen, it will in this world.
Madam Chair, what we're being asked for is a method of design, construction,
Right,
not really discussing the need for the facility or not. So
right.
as far as the method of construction goes, I would recommend approval of the
So there
resolution.
is no money that would have to be paid to start this process and to get this going.
So the next point at which we would have to commit funds is when we advertise the RFQ, get responses back, choose a winner, and then reach a contract with them. And we would bring that contract to you. So no, there's no funding that has to be done for you to approve this
And
today.
how long are you saying that it would be from now until we get that approval to have to approve that contract?
Oh,
He said 6 to 8 weeks.
So that would be before
yeah,
our
at least.
budget, the end of June.
At least, yeah. So it's also totally reasonable for you to approve this today, but direct me to kind of wait until we are certain that the land is going to be complete before we take the next step in that process.
Or commit any funds.
Absolutely.
That's what I'm concerned about. Okay.
Totally, and happy
I
to
don't
do
want to
that.
commit and then the land not come through or there be some big problem or something because
Yeah, I
then
agree.
we've already committed funds to land we don't have.
And just one more thing, everything is, 119 is turning into Huffman Mill Road. It's everywhere you look. I had to get steaks from Kenyans Saturday, and it's just what it is, because that area is just growing, growing, growing. That's the only place we can find something.
So this is 119, but it's the 119 bypass, which is much farther up north by Highway 70.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Anything else?
It's the one we've been, I'm trying to remember when this first came up. We've been talking about this for years.
William.
We know it's there. We know we have a need. We know we have response time issues. I personally can't see much point in delaying the process any more than we have to. I mean, we've got to design a building if we're going to put a building on that piece of property, and we've got to initiate that process. But there are triggers that are going to keep us from actually committing funds until we get more into the process. Correct?
Yeah.
There are right now, but I think the reason that we wanted to bring this forward at this time was that we are working on your upcoming budget.
Right.
And so as we move forward past the design component of this project, that will trigger some operating expenses, some very significant operating expenses. We've talked about needing 16 paramedics to staff this. We would
Exactly.
love to start advertising for those positions next spring. And so we are going to need some money to make this happen. And so I think before we go out and, commit funds to designing this and then start the construction, I want to make sure that the board understands
It's going to
the
be a cost.
totality of this and having a budget next year that can accommodate a project of this size will require some funding increases.
Weren't you saying like just the overall payroll is about $1.6 million if you fund it for like what it needs?
Yes,
We
for the
see
16
shortages now.
paramedics, you're talking
And
over $1 million.
We now have the vehicles, or is that going to be an additional cost?
We do have that. We've already made the purchases of the ambulances, so we have that. But we would need the higher the paramedics.
I'm sorry. Well, she wanted to explain it.
I understand, and I'm in agreement. I'm in agreement with what Ms. York is saying. Lives matter. We can't, this timing issue is only gonna get worse. It's not gonna get better until we do something. And when we've got people out there that are at risk of dying because we can't get someplace in time, that's one of our principal responsibilities as government, is to provide for public safety. I just don't see the point in delaying this any longer. We know we've got to have it. We've started the process. We've acquired, or are in the process of acquiring the equipment. We need to move forward and having a place to put it. This is just one step in that process, and I'm going to make a motion that we approve this resolution.
I'll second.
I'd like to speak on
I'm
it
sorry.
first. We need the facility, that's evident. It's going to take the better part of 2 years to construct the facility. I think my township of Mebane should be consider being a little bit more accommodating with what we do in the 2 years. At the same time, I don't see the reason to say let's fund something before we even purchase the land. I think that's not prudent management. It doesn't mean we can't approve it right away when we the session right after the purchase. We move ahead with it, make the plan to do it. But let's, again, to use the chair's comment, not get the cart in front of the horse. Let's manage the money based on the circumstances as opposed to what we hope to happen. So those are my comments.
Well, this is not we're not committing to the funding today. This is committing to a process, design, build, and soliciting bids. We won't be committing to any funding until we get bids on that process.
But we're moving the process forward as if, and that's what I object to. Let's move the process forward based on the reality, not what we hope to have happen. There's no time delay that I can see involved, but here we are committing to a course of action, and it's the courses of action that we keep getting ourselves into trouble with without fully examining them. And I think we need to do that once the property is acquired. I got no objections. Move ahead.
Can I ask a question here? You have read the proposal for the land swap, I'm sure, correct?
I have, yes.
Attorney Stevens.
Yes.
Can you state what there seems to be what the problem seems to be, if it's quick resolve or if it's going to be a prolonged issue? Just, you don't have to,
I don't.
Prolonged or quick.
I don't really know. I know that Corey has told us it's going to be a delay because they, at the time we formed this agreement with them, had an option to purchase the land in question. And for whatever reason, that option has not vested ownership in them yet. So they don't yet own the property, at least as of last week, to give it to us. They're still in the process of purchasing. I have no indication that they don't intend to follow through on the agreement once they own the property.
Right. It's just an issue with getting the property from the property owner now.
That's correct.
Susan, or I'm calling you by your first name, or Heidi. Do you have any idea how much that would add to the budget before the end of June this year?
For the current year, we already have the money budgeted for the design work.
Right. So it would be on next year's.
It would be significant on next year.
That's what I wanted confirmed. Okay.
Next year, meaning 27, or
Meaning
I'm sorry,
26,
this June?
26,
27.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That's what I was getting at.
The 5 million that we would use for construction, we anticipate financing. So there would be a financing for that, and then the operations cost, we would start ramping up in the spring of 27 to begin hiring.
That was the point, that it's not going to happen in this budget year. It'll be happening next budget.
It'll be in your upcoming budget year that you are hoping to not see increase.
Yeah, we passed the budget. It's amazing. We passed the budget.
We do.
It's amazing.
Okay. So we have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Clarify the motion for me again, please. What are we doing?
Go pass the resolution only right now. Which means that if the land deal doesn't go through, then all we've done is pass the resolution to start taking bidding and construction designs from somebody.
Bids for construction design.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay. So we've got a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
I said aye.
Oh, sorry, I didn't hear you.
Aye.
Oh, we know what we need to start doing. We need to start putting your hand up. Because sometimes you say, and everybody's like, what? Okay. 5-0. Thank you. County Attorney report.
I think you guys have heard plenty from me today, so nothing further. Thank you.
County Manager.
I have a couple of items that I want to share with you this morning. Your seats should be a copy of the ABSS budget request, your citizen financial report, and a copy of the county audit. We just wanted to make sure that you all knew that those were distributed for you. I did want to announce that April is Child Abuse Prevention Month. And through a partnership with our Department of Social Services, Guardian Ad Litem, and several others, they are providing lapel pins for commissioners to wear in support of child abuse prevention. We'll get those out to you. And pinwheels have been planted at the historic courthouse, at the Petrie Building, and other locations around the community to share awareness and remind everyone of their duty to report. Secondly, April 12th through 18th is National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week. And I wanted to just take a moment to express our appreciation to our telecommunicators. Telecommunicators, I often see them as our unsung heroes. They're the first point of contact for any emergency in the county, including all municipalities in Alamance County as well. They're very critical contact between our citizens who have emergencies and then our dispatching of law enforcement, firefighters, and paramedics. And that dispatch is dependent upon the quality and the accuracy of information that our telecommunicators obtain from our citizens. They contribute substantially to the apprehension of criminals, suppression of fires, and treatment of patients by providing life safety instructions, including but not limited to CPR, childbirth, choking, bleeding control, and mental health crises. So we wanted to recognize the week of April 12th through the 18th to be National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week in Alamance County, and to honor the men and women whose diligence and professionalism keep our residents safe. I appreciate what they do and wanted to give you the opportunity to also extend that appreciation to them.
Of course. Okay.
And lastly, I had promised at our last meeting to introduce our new EMS director to you all. So I have Josh Kylander here with us. And like any good leader, I think he also wanted to take the time to share a little bit about his team and some of the achievements and the outstanding distinctions that they have achieved as well. Welcome, Josh. We are happy to have you at the helm of running emergency services for us.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Thank you for having us here with you today. My name is Josh Kylander. I'm your new EMS Director. I have been with Alamance County EMS for 18 years. I also have a background of experience in law enforcement, 911 communications, and volunteer fire service. I have with me here today Mackenzie Bird and Matthew Brooks. I would like to ask them to come up and join me. They will be representing Alamance County EMS in the North Carolina State Office of EMS Paramedic Competition in Winston-Salem on May the 3rd. They just recently won at the regional competition in Mount Airy. Matthew and Mackenzie are with Alamance County EMS full-time paramedics here. The last time that Alamance County EMS had representation at the state paramedic competition was about 30 years ago.
Wow.
A team of two, one of which was Matthew's father, Scott Brooks.
No.
What is that?
Thank you. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what they'll be doing in the competition?
Yes, in the paramedic competition, Matthew and Mackenzie will participate in a scenario in which they'll be given a variety of tasks to perform with multiple patients. The scenario lasts about 15 minutes. They'll have multiple things to do, and the resources are very constrained. So it's very triage-based, good decision-making, critical thinking. Thank you.
Thank you. Nice to see you all.
Well,
Yes.
new role.
Mm-hmm.
They certainly make us. That's all I had. Thank you.
Okay. We're going to be the commissioner's comments, which hopefully we've already. Ms. Thompson.
I just want to share something with you guys. If you haven't gone to see the movie A Great Awakening, you really need to. At such a time of our country when it seems like it's just so divided. This just really puts into perspective of how we got to be such a great country. And I just wanted to read just a snapshot of it. It says, at the time of this, the colonies were on the brink of collapse. The Reverend George Whitefield sparks the first great awakening, uniting our entire generations with thundering and proclamations of liberty in Christ. In a miraculous turn of events, one of Whitefield's closest friends and greatest promoters became none other than Benjamin Franklin. When the nation's freedom hanging in the balance, Franklin discovers true liberty can not only be written in the law, it must be awakened in the hearts of people. And I know at such a time, there's always been power plays because we had Alexander Hamilton on one side and George White. It was just amazing to see that they argued too. I didn't like they had brothers' wigs. I'd have never made it. But anyway, it was just all things that we always did. And Whitefield was just amazing. He just took up and went preaching all over this country and just really led people to what they needed to be. And at times, the 2 Chronicles 7:14, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from them heaven, and I will forgive their sin and heal their land. And we just watched a real tough time over the weekend with some of our military pilots shot down in the middle of Iran, and it was a really, really scary time. And one of those that they just found over the weekends was a weapons systems operator, which is what Craig Turner was, in the back of that plane. And they found him, and he's safe, and thank God for it. And no matter who our president is, no matter if you like him or her or not, we all have to be on the same side when it comes to our country. Hate will destroy us. And the guy that said, united we stand, divided we fall, what a brilliant concept to say that, because we see that now, because I've always said you don't need another bin Laden, you just don't need to get along at home. So I just hope that this coming times with us, with where our country's at, that we will really pull together and get over this hate, because hate doesn't do anything to who you're hating, it destroys you from within. So I'm just glad that they found our military. I'm just a big fan of our military, as being the daughter and the mother of Army and Air Force. It was just absolutely amazing, and I'm just so thankful God's hand was all over those guys that went in and rescued them. And we are the greatest country in the world, and just God bless America. Just God bless America.
Yeah, I'd like to just take this moment, since we have our EMS director and all here, and several of you that work in that area, and just say thank you. You know, I can't imagine what it is that we're here for if it's not to support the, facilities that we have to protect our people. And that includes, of course, the sheriff's department and the fire and police and all that. But EMS does so much. We had a bus accident here, I think it was a year ago, where there was a child on the side of the road for 30 minutes with a compound fracture in his leg, waiting. And, that's the type of thing that we really just need to do something about. And if I don't like to see our taxes go up. We need to, that's a whole nother issue that we've got to address. But if we're going to spend money in any area, we need to be supporting EMS services. And I think that's long overdue and something that we really need to do. And I just want to say personally, thank you for all the work that you're doing here in the community to help our citizens out. We really appreciate that. Thank you.
I agree with everything you said. And after retiring after 43 years as a nurse, I know how important, and I think everyone knows that one of my main concerns, first and foremost, is safety. And then it goes down from there. It's a little early to mention it, but Haw River has been having a junior firefighter competition. Y'all were talking about the competition that you were in, and it's a time thing, like how quick they can get their gear on and get out, and to getting to what would be a fire. And that competition is actually held on Saturday, August the 8th at 7 o'clock, and you go past the pet adoption agency, and it's on the left where the fire tower and all that for the training is. And if you've never been, it's worth your time to go. And then also, I don't think a lot of people realize that they can also make donations to the rescue unit, and that it is a tax deduction, and it never hurts. If you've got $25, $30, $40, $50, that helps these guys keep doing what they're already doing. The EMS, of course, is supported from the county, but the rescue unit, which is the only Swiftwater certified in Alamance County, Swiftwater Rescue, is worthwhile to donate to these groups. And that's all I have to say.
Well, I think it's already been observed very well, and I've said it myself today. Public safety is one of our principal responsibilities, and education is another one of our principal responsibilities. We don't pay the students, the teachers, we don't pay the staff directly. That's a responsibility of the state, but it's our responsibility to keep the facilities up to par. That's an important responsibility for us, and to provide facilities for our public safety officials to operate out of. So these are all, there are so many mandated services that our constituents aren't aware that we're actually responsible to the state for. So I think we ought to do a better job of making sure our constituents know what we're dealing with on a day-to-day basis. This whole issue of the landfill, like I said earlier, brings back memories of going through the one that happened back in, I think it was, we'll say it was 22 or 23. And everybody didn't leave that situation happy. And everybody's not going to leave this one happy. But our job is to deal with the plans we have set in motion over time. And in this particular situation, we're dealing with HIDOs and which is a heavy industry development ordinance, or a UDO, a uniform development ordinance, things that have been developed and designed over the years, which need some tweaking and bringing up into the 21st century, because some of that stuff is not as rock solid for us today as what we thought it was back then. And that's one of the jobs that our planning director has before him. This whole issue of serving the rest of our community is the whole county. Our community is not just the rural part of the county for our commissioners. The municipalities have a responsibility to their constituents to get the yard waste and so forth up, but they have to have a place to put it. And we have to provide, and those are other responsibilities of our county. We have to provide places for stuff to be disposed of. That's why we have to solid waste landfill. That's why we have which is actually a money-making proposition for the county. There's so many pieces to what we have to be responsible for. But the other side of this equation is looking at what I also talked about, our growth. We're going to be a much different county by 2035. I probably will not be here in 2035. But we're trying to look and think about things our citizens will have to deal with at that time and be prepared for it, and try to bring the county into a position so it's serving our citizens into the future. It's an important responsibility, and I think all five of us take it seriously. We all have different approaches to it, and we won't always agree about how to get where we need to go. But it's a legislative process. Our job is to try and come together and come up with a plan which the majority of us feel is best for our constituents. So that's what we're trying to work for right now in this situation with the landfill. So I appreciate the patience that we've seen from the people who showed up today. Thank you. And I appreciate public participation in what we're doing. I mean, if you don't come out and tell us how you feel, and I wish the majority of the people that were in here this morning were still here, could hear this. If you don't come and tell us how you feel, sometimes we don't know. But we have heard over the years, I have heard overwhelming response from our constituents in the county that they don't want zoning. You don't want zoning until it affects you, and then you want something done about it. Sorry, but it doesn't work that way.
Commissioner Freeland.
Well, I had 3 points, but I only got 4. Thank you, Steve. I don't want zoning and won't be in favor of it. But number one, I'd like to echo Commissioner Powell's comments. If you got to pay for something, you need to pay for the first frontline services, and EMS is one of them. Second point is welcome aboard, and thanks to the team for coming out today. It's important that you know we support you. Now, the kind of an important third point is that my movie review. All right, it's fun. Ryan Gosling in Hail Mary. Good, wholesome fun. Go out and see it and have a good week.
I've heard that's good.
It's a good movie, yeah. It's long. It's like 2 hours plus.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is it a football film?
No, space, sci-fi.
Oh, that kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah, good one.
All right, before we go to adjournment, I would like to say that I think it was a very smart idea for us to change and make this our business session because everybody's on the job. If there's a question with one of our employees, then Ms. York can reach down and ask them, or they could even come and answer the questions, and we have our staff here. And hopefully a lot of our questions are answered. So instead of being here till 10:30 or 11 o'clock on our next meeting, when we vote on everything, or the ones that we haven't approved already, which will be off the agenda, then this really makes a huge difference in the timeline. And so this one seems to run long, but it's better to do it now during the daytime than it is to be 10:30 and 11 o'clock leaving at night. So I will accept a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you so much for hanging with us and coming through.
Thank you for watching the Alamance County Commissioners Meeting. Commissioner meetings typically occur on the first and third Monday of each month in the Commissioners Meeting Room in the County Office Building at 124 West Elm Street in Graham. The first Monday meeting begins at 9:30 a.m. and the third Monday meeting begins at 6:30 p.m. Changes to the meeting schedule will be posted on the county website at alamancecounty.nc.gov. This meeting will be broadcast on LocalGov TV. Please go to www.localgovtvnc.com for more information about their schedule and to see more videos produced by your local governments. You can also access this meeting through our YouTube channel at www.youtube.com/Alamance County NC or by clicking the YouTube link on the county website. Technical questions regarding this broadcast or production may be sent to our county webmaster via email at webmaster@alamancecounty.nc.gov. This address is for technical questions only. Comments and questions about the content of this meeting may be made to the commissioners themselves. You can find their contact information at the Alamance County website at commissioners.alamancecounty.nc.gov. There, you can learn more about the commissioners' duties, read minutes and agendas of commissioner meetings, and find other information about the county commissioners. You can also send mail correspondence to County Commissioners, 124 West Elm Street, Graham, North Carolina, 27253. Again, thank you for watching the Alamance County Commissioners Meeting. Thanks for tuning in. If you're watching on YouTube, be sure to hit the subscribe button to stay up to date on all of our latest video content. If you're watching on LocalGov TV, be sure to visit their website to see all of the content made for you by your local governments.